Hey guys, tonight we embark on a journey that's equal parts epic and bedtime story, with just enough danger that you'll probably not survive it, though that's why it's more fun, right? We're diving into the aftermath of the Trojan War, a conflict that famously burned for 10 long years before the Greeks finally claimed victory. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand on the deck of a battered trireme, its oars dipping lazily into dark water as the smoke curls up from the blackened ruins of Troy. The air tastes of ash and sweat, a reminder that 10 years of relentless siege have finally come to an end, an achievement so legendary that generations later, bardic poets would still be rhyming about it. Fun fact, archaeologists believe the real city of Troy sat atop a mound in what is now northwestern Turkey, where multiple layers of settlement hint at least 9 distinct destructions and rebuilds over centuries. Your cloak flutters in, breeze that smells faintly of brine and impending rain. The sky above roils with bruised purple clouds, illuminated by distant lightning. You glance to your right and catch the eye of a fellow helmsman, whose knuckles are white from gripping the ship's wheel. You flash him a half grin that's less "I've got this," and more "I have no idea what I'm doing," but at least it makes for a good bedtime story. He offers a shaky thumbs dash up dot below deck. A few soldiers gamble with dice carved from animal bones, their laughter echoing up in bursts. You wonder if they realize how unwise it is to celebrate in the eye of a storm, or if they think that feeling homesick is better cured with a risky game of craps. Eccentric tidbit. In ancient Greece, dice games were so popular that some players kept a knuckle bone or a astragalus as a lucky charm, apparently. You could also use those same bones for treating sprained ankles. Ahead of you lies the horizon, a dark line where water meets sky like the edge of a giant impermanent painting. Somewhere beyond that, home waits an olive-studded island called Ithaca, where grapevines drape like lazy green snakes and goats nibble on thyme-scented pasture. You haven't seen Ithaca in over a decade. Your heart thuds inside your ribs like a war drum that refuses to be silenced. It's been 10 years since you left, 10 years since you last sat at your own hearth or heard the gentle hush of your wife, Penelope, stitching by lamplight. A crack of thunder rattles the mast. You drop your hand to the polished wood, feeling the grooves carved by generations of sailors. You choke back a joke you were going to say, "I always wanted bangs," but this probably isn't the moment. Instead, you press your fingertips into the grain and listen to the wind whistle through the ropes, imagining it whispers your name like a childhood friend calling you home. The helmsman shouts, "Storm's coming." Though that's about as subtle as a cyclops smashing a village. You laugh to yourself. If you survived being trapped by a one-eyed giant, you can handle a little weather. At least that's what you tell yourself, which is exactly the kind of confidence you need when you're staring into swirling clouds that could easily hurl you into the drink. Sea legends say that once you're in Poseidon's bad books, storm, clouds follow you like lost puppies. And yes, you definitely called him out by name back in the Cyclops' cave. Lesson learned: Never brag to a god with an attitude problem. The deck pitches beneath your feet. You grip a rope to steady yourself because balance is underrated during an ocean ruckus. One of the soldiers spills his dice box, sending ivory cubes clattering. They roll across the deck, and for a split second, they look like tiny, bleached bones washing up after a shipwreck. You quip, "Well, there goes our dinner," but neither you nor the soldier feels much like laughing. You tuck that joke away for later. The wind gusts again. Your cloak slaps your leg like a noisy metronome. You peer toward the bow and see the prow slicing through whitecaps, waves cresting and falling in a rhythmic pulse, as if the sea itself breathes. You lean over and dip a finger into the foam. It feels sharp and cold, like someone turned the world's AC down to Arctic levels. It's a sensory shock that makes your pulse skip. You never really forget what the open water feels like, even after all these years. Lightning forks across the sky, bright enough, almost too bright too. See the distant shapes of other Greek ships, their sails taut, their banners limp from exhaustion. The fleet stretches behind you like a ghostly armada, half lost in the storm's gloom. Each vessel carries a story, a lifetime of hopes, regrets, and broken oaths. Yours is just one, a longing so fierce it burns beneath your breastplate, deeper than any forge's fire. Your stomach rumbles. Hunger is a faithful companion, at sea unwelcome, but persistent. You haven't eaten since dawn. The mariners will offer stale barley bread, or perhaps olives cured in brine, so salty they could strip. Paint. You joke that you'd trade your finest cloak for a single fig, but the humor tastes bitter against your tongue. It's a small price for home's comforts. A warm hearth, fresh bread, the laughter of children playing under an olive tree. Below, you in a creaking hold, barrels of wine slosh in the dark. You imagine uprooting a barrel and rolling it across deck, figuring that if you're going to ride out a storm, you might as well do it tipsy. But you resist. Discipline, after all, has carried you this far. Recklessness nearly got you eaten by a cyclops. You rise, squaring your shoulders against the wind. The storm will break or it won't. Either way, dawn will come. And with that dawn, you'll be closer to Ithaca than you've been in 10 years. You take a deep breath, tasting salt, smoke, sweat, and a spark of hope that crackles brighter than any lightning bolt dot as the first thunderclap echoes in your bones. You press your palm to the mast, grounding yourself in the moment. You survived Troy, and everything that happened after could be spun into a bedtime story, too. So you lean back, ready for the sea's lullaby, and hope that tonight the wind carries you home. You slip down from the high prow of your ship onto the smooth, dark sand of Ismarus just before dawn, the horizon glowing with thin streaks of pink that promise a warm sunrise after last night's chill. The salt in the air mixes with the sweet tang of crushed olives, and you can almost taste the feast that awaits. After 10 years locked in bloody siege warfare, the thrill of plunder still quickens your pulse, like a shot of strong coffee at midnight. You nudge a nearby warrior with your elbow and whisper, "Ready for a light stroll through enemy territory?" He grins, revealing teeth flecked with the red residue of last night's dried figs, and you both slip quietly toward the hilltop. Settlement. Silence blankets the land as you climb the gentle slope, your sandals crunching on pebbles. You glance behind and see your comrades scattered like curious fireflies, spears lowered but alert. Together you reach the palisade, a rough wall of sharpened stakes worn by rain and time. You raise a hand, signaling the first wave to move. In that moment, the only sound is the soft slap of your own heartbeat, racing in anticipation of the raid to come. Behind those stakes live the Chiconas, a Thracian tribe famed for their fierce loyalty and sharp axes. With a sudden burst, you charge through a gap in their defenses. In seconds, drums of war explode from the village center as startled warriors scramble to defend their homes. You duck behind a low wall of stacked grain sacks barley that will soon fill your hold, then peek over the top. A young Chicone's fighter, barely older than a boy, raises his spear. You swivel a javelin, hurling it past your ear. It thuds into the wooden gate, splintering it. The boy stumbles back, aghast. You can't help yourself. You quip. You've got to at least aim for my head, and he freezes, momentarily confused. Before retreating under the arrow storm, your comrades are already loosing dot inside the village. You discover rows of stone cottages and open courtyards where livestock bleats in panic. The smell of wood smoke curls lazily from clay chimneys, and you pause to inhale that warm, familiar odor, like being tucked under a blanket fresh from the dryer. A soldier beside you sweeps a ceramic jug filled with honeyed wine off a table to his lips. You grab the next jug as he staggers away, and the sweet liquid burns like liquid fire sliding down your throat, loosening your tongue and your guard. You realize you haven't felt this alive since the walls of Troy fell beneath Greek ladders. You rally your group around the village granary, hauling sacks of grain onto waiting ships. Every creak of the bulkhead and thud of grain sorting into barrels feels like the overture to celebration. You laugh as one barrel tips over, sending grains skittering across the deck in a hissing wave-like pop rocks, fizzing underfoot. It's a small comedy, but you're starved for levity. After 10 years of siege and storms, it's rare to find a moment so utterly absurd. As the sun climbs higher, you pause on a hill overlooking the coastline. Below, your ships lie snug against the shore, their keels buried in wet sand. You watch as your men load silver cups, bronze cauldrons, and golden bracelets plundered from wealthy homes. The sight is dizzying, glinting treasure piled high, as if a dragon's hoard were scattered across the beach. You rub your chin thoughtfully. We'll be richer than any TikTok influencer after this haul, you joke, and a few soldiers laugh. The sound bright enough to cut through the village's distant laments. But as you wave your hand to call them in, you notice movement on the far slope. A gathering of Chicone's warriors emerging from the tree line, shields raised like a forest of pale moons. You swallow hard. Their leader strides forward, blowing a horn carved from boar tusk. His voice echoes, low and commanding. You estimate 100 fighters at least, and you realize that in your greed, your gluttony for spoils, you've overstayed. Memories of poor planning and past raids flicker in your mind. A wooden bridge burnt too soon, a column left unguarded. You grit your teeth and rally your men, shouting, "Time to test those sea legs again." Chaos erupts as the Chicones charge downhill, a tide of leather and steel crashing toward you. You drop the silver cup you were about to pocket and sprint. Toward your ship, the sand yielding under your sandals, giving way like the unstable alliances of Greek city-states. You hear a comrade cry out, and you glance back to see him tripped by a fallen olive branch, shield clattering away. You rush to help him up, elbowing an enemy spear aside, and mutter, "I hate borrowing trouble." Back on the beach, you leap onto the deck and yank a rope, ordering the oarsman to shove off. The rowers strain, muscles bulging, each thrust of the oar sending sprays of seawater across the deck. You glance back as the village slams shut behind you, the Chicons hurling javelins that clatter harmlessly against the hull. You flip a handful of dried fish toward them, a mocking salute that nearly makes you laugh. Hunger pangs jab at your ribs, but adrenaline dulls the ache. The sea welcomes you like an old friend, waves rocking the ship in a comforting sway. You press your palm to the cool wood rail and feel every scar and gouge the ocean has carved into it over the years. It's a tactile map of your past. The Cyclops' cave, the swineherd's island, every island in between. You draw in a deep breath of briny air. The horizon stretches endless and untamed, promising both salvation and fresh chaos when you reach the main fleet. You see a dozen other ships retreating in staggered formation. You pass your spoils to a waiting supply boat, shouting instructions drunkenly that scatter like gulls in flight. A lieutenant nudges you, pointing at your cloak now smudged with mud and spilled wine. You laugh and peel it off, tossing it aside. In its place, you tie a length of braided rope around your waist, feeling more at home in simple cord than in fine fabrics stained by plunder dot. As the ships settle into safe distance, you call a parley around a low crackle of a makeshift fire. You hand out barley cakes fried and olive oil stale yesterday, but heavenly after battle and dimly sweet figs from a pressed barrel. The men eat in companionable silence, the crackling embers casting dancing shadows on their weary faces. You tip your head back, letting the smoke drift over you like a blanket, and you marvel at how quickly triumph can turn to retreat. In that smoky glow, you offer a quiet toast to cunning, to chance, and to getting the hell out of here. Words feel heavy in your mouth, weighed by the cost of arrogance. You think of the Chicons' fields trampled, their granaries emptied, and you wonder how long it will be before you learn true restraint. But for now, the wind carries you away from Ismarus, and the sea hushes your doubts. The shore falls behind, dissolving into mist. You lean on the railing, chin propped on folded arms. The rhythmic dip of oars lulls you almost to sleep, as if reminding you that every conquest must ebb like the tide. Tomorrow, you'll stand on another shore, hungry for more stories, more wine, more chaos, and yet each raid teaches you a little humility. You let the ship's sway rock you, eyelids fluttering, and imagine home again, rooftops shining in the afternoon sun, your wife's voice calling you to dinner, the soft lamplight flickering against woven textiles. Your gaze drifts upward, where gulls wheel in spirals, squawking softly as if gossiping about your foolish bravery. You grin and whisper to them, "I'll see you at home someday," though you don't know if that's promise or fantasy. For now there's only the sea, the wind, and the memory of Ismarus fading into the blue. You settle into that gentle, rocking, letting salt spray mist your face, and drift toward dreams of returning not as a conqueror, but as someone who finally understands that spoils taste sweetest when savored in moderation You wake to a soft murmur of oars dipping in unison, the ship gliding through a sea so calm it feels more like a glass pane than water. The early light brushes the horizon, painting waves in pastel hues of pink and lavender. You squint against the glare and see a hazy outline of an island rising from the mist, its slopes smooth and low, almost like a giant's shoulder peeking above the waterline. This is the land of the lotus eaters, a place whispered about among sailors for its strange hospitality and even stranger fruit. As you step onto the deck, the air shifts sweet, floral, almost cloying. It carries with it a tingle that tickles your nostrils, like walking into a perfumer's workshop and accidentally inhaling every vial at once. You pause, inhaling deeply, and for a moment, the sting of the salty spray and the bite of the wind vanish. In their place is a gentle warmth, as if the island itself is sighing a soft invitation. The ship nudges sandy shallows, and you slide off the plank into powdery sand that feels like damp flour beneath your sandals. Every footprint disappears almost instantly, smoothed by a breeze that seems more interested in guiding your steps toward something hidden. You glance back at your men. They're already unloading barrels of water and fish, all of them moving with an easy languor you can't quite place. A couple of soldiers lounge against the hull, picking at strange shrubs that line the shore. You join them, bending to inspect the plant, a low, shrubby bush with ovate leaves that glimmer like polished jade. Clusters of pale berries hang in, heavy clusters, each fruit as plump as a marble and twice as round. One of your comrades pops a berry into his mouth, his eyes widening in delight as he chews. You hesitate, remembering stories of sailors who tasted the lotus and never wanted to leave. You chastise yourself. After all, you faced cyclopes, winds gods, and sea monsters. How dangerous could a berry be? You pluck a single fruit and nibble the skin. It's cool and smooth, then bursts with a honeyed juice that floods your tongue. The world tilts gently, colors brightening around the edges, laughter rising from somewhere in your chest. You chew another and another until all sense of hunger vanishes like mist at dawn. Your eyelids grow heavy and the hum of conversation around you fades into a soft lullaby. Curiosity tugs at the edge of your fogged mind. Did the lotus really ensnare memory so thoroughly that men forgot their homes? You recall that Homer's Odyssey locates the lotus eaters somewhere near modern-day Libya, along the North African coast. Those scholars debate whether it was real or metaphorical. Either way, you're living the same tale, now an unwilling participant in its gentle enchantment. The sun climbs higher, but it feels distant, like an afterthought. You wander inland without really deciding to, each step lighter than the last. The soil is strange here, soft, almost pillowy underfoot, and dotted with white blossoms that sway like clockwork to a breeze only they perceive. You notice shapes, carved in pale stone peeking through the undergrowth. Crude reliefs of people reclining, cups in hand, faces serene. You brush moss from one carving and see it depicts a figure draped across a throne, eyes closed in bliss. You half smile, imagining it's the portrait of the island's ruler if he ever stirred from his stupor. A deeper tranquility settles over you, and you feel compelled to lie beneath a copse of olive-green leaves. You sink into a grassy hollow, the ground soft as a crib mattress, and let your head fall back. Above you, the branches form a latticework that filters the sunlight into kaleidoscopic patterns. Each shadow feels like a whisper, coaxing you further from alertness. You blink, and the world seems both impossibly distant and intimately close, as if you've been compressed into the heart of a pearl. Time dissolves. You can't say if minutes or hours slip by as you drift in and out of drowsy awareness. The gentle hum of insects, the distant lap of a hidden stream, the rustle of leaves overhead, they weave into a lullaby meant just for you. You almost miss the clang of your own voice calling out to the men to gather these bounties and share them freely. But your lips barely form the words before you forget what you intended. Even the thought of Ithaca, the rocky coastline, Penelope's gentle smile, the laughter of children at play flickers and dims. A sudden breeze stirs the branches, sharper than before, and you catch a hint of salt and storm. It's like the world is nudging you, reminding you that you have places to be and people who wait. You sit up, quivering as if waking from a deep fever dream. The island's color drains away, replaced by reality's more muted palette. Your heart pounds with a new urgency as memories flood back, the Cyclops' rage, Circe's cunning, the promise of a familiar hearth. You scramble to your feet, brushing grass from your cloak and scanning the grove. The other soldiers stare at you with glazed eyes, their limbs slack, mouths parted in silent reverie. You shake one of them firmly, shouting his name until his eyes refocus with clarity. "We're not staying here," you bark, voice rough with sudden resolve. "Load the ship, now." His gaze flicks to the shore, where your vessel bobs in gentle waves, innocently awaiting your return. They rouse themselves, confusion etched on their faces, but obedience wins over curiosity. The men gather the lotus fruit in leather pouches, stuffing handfuls into supplies, even as their arms tremble with pent-up longing. You watch them, realizing how close you all came to forgetting everything that defined you. You step onto the sand and breathe deeply, tasting the sharp tang of salt once more. It grounds you, pins you back to your mission dot as you lead the way. Along the beach, you glance back at the grove one last time. The shrubs sway with a knowing rhythm, as if shrugging off your departure. You resist the urge to scoff. This place has its own magic, after all, but you steel yourself against its pull. The sea breeze fills your nostrils, bracing and clear, and you know the world beyond this island still calls. You reach the gangplank and step onto the deck, scanning the horizon for wind. A pale breeze stirs the sails just enough to catch them, and you give a nod. The oarsmen dip their blades, and the ship slides away from the shore with elegant slowness. The island shrinks behind you, its outlines blurred by retreat and memory. Alike, you tuck a small pouch of lotus berries into your cloak, not to taste again, but to remember that even the sweetest things can lead you astray. The oars move with steady rhythm, and the gentle rocking rocks you from the haze of enchantment back into clarity. You grip the railing, tasting freedom in the sting of spray on your lips. Behind you, the lotus eaters call softly, a fading chorus on the wind. Ahead, unknown challenges await, but you face them armed with renewed purpose. The taste of home is sharp now, the promise of Ithaca burning brighter than any flower's spell. The island's shape dissolves into sky and sea, and you lean forward, eyes fixed on the horizon. Every wave carries you a little closer to what you've been longing for. You let the oar's lullaby wash over you, but this time it sings of return. Not forgetting, you and your men row into a shadowed inlet where sheer cliffs rise like silent sentinels, each rock face streaked by centuries of rainfall. The air is thick with the brine of the sea and the faint, unpleasant tang of animal dung. Somewhere ahead, a low moan reverberates off the walls, reminding you of distant thunder. Your heart beats faster, half thrill, half dread. You know this. Place well in stories told around campfires, though nothing truly prepares you for its living terror. Steering the prow into a narrow cave mouth, you slip into darkness so complete that you rely on touch rather than sight. The wooden hull grinds over sand, and you hear your crew shuffle anxiously behind you. You raise a hand to signal silence. The only response is the drip of water echoing from unseen crevices. Your pulse flutters, and part of you marvels at the irony. After outwitting armies, storms, and sirens, here you are about to face a giant whose favorite pastime is lunch. The cave opens into a vast chamber, lit by shafts of sunlight that pierce cracks high above. In the center sits a monstrous boulder, scorched and blackened around the edges. Next to it, a great pit smolders, the remnants of a fire still glow like embers in a hearth. You realize this must be the Cyclops' kitchen. The walls, smoothed by centuries of flame, bear rude carvings of sheep and men in mid-flight. You notice one depiction shows a man with a fish tail, perhaps a sailor half swallowed by the sea, a crude warning, or an artist's grim sense of humor. Your men clutch their weapons but hesitate, and you clear your throat. Spread out, you whisper, forcing calm into your voice. Find supplies, food, wine, anything useful. They fan out, eyes darting in every shadow. You move toward a cluster of goats penned in one corner. The animals bleat in panic, their white fleeces stained with straw and grime. You pocket a small knife and cut a rope, sending the startled creatures scampering. One bumps into your leg and nudges you with its forehead, soft and woolly. The absurd softness of its coat contrasts sharply with the weight in your gut. This isn't a friendly farm. Just then, a deafening crack splits the air. Rocks tumble from the cave roof and clatter to the ground. A deep, resonant voice bellows, "Who dares steal my dinner?" Your stomach twists into knots. You sweep your gaze upward and see him, a titanic figure looming at the cave entrance, hair matted and tangled, one eye swelling shut. His single orb fixes on you with a mix of rage and curiosity. You swallow hard, realizing the Cyclops is not a beast to be bargained with. Instinct and training take over. You step forward, sword drawn, voice steady. "Great Cyclops, we are wandering Greeks seeking hospitality, not war. Spare us, and we will go in peace." He snorts, a sound like grinding boulders, and strides. Deeper each footprint, cracking stones beneath him. You count 4 steps before he's towering above you, his breath an acrid wind. He scoops up a massive club and swats it across your chest, sending you sprawling. Pain blossoms, but you clench your teeth and rise. Around you, your comrades scatter some back toward the cave's depths. Others freeze in place, gobsmacked by the monster's enormity. You grit your teeth and force a grin. "I suppose this isn't the welcome party I was expecting." He laughs, a low rumble that shakes pebbles from the ceiling. "Welcome? You're mine," he snarls and grabs 2 of your men, smooshing them together like dolls. You feel bile rise in your throat, but you force it back and think fast. You flip behind a fallen pillar, slashing at his ankle, drawing a gout of blood, and a roar that splits the cavern. The Cyclops rears back, dropping your men to crush them only lightly, but you can't focus on mercy. You dash away, yanking at a sturdy olive branch and hurling it at his eye. The bristled twig breaks and the shards snap against rock dot. He bellows, reeling, and you seize the moment. You remember the wine you pilfered from the ship-strong, heady Red. You run past your stunned crew and up to his massive flask, uncorking it and tipping it into his mouth like a lifeline. He gulps greedily, roaring in drunken delight as the fiery liquid burns down his throat. Vision blurring, he staggers, and you lean in close, voice low and taunting. Drink first, ask questions later. With every gulp, his single eye grows heavier, drooping like a wax candle melting at the edges. When he's swaying, you call your men. Now. They converge, forging a makeshift weapon, a sharpened stake carved from olive wood. You reshape its tip, grinding it against stone until it gleams like a dagger. Each heartbeat thunders in your ears. The cave seems to hold its breath. You approach. The Cyclops, who's too drunk to steady his club. Standing on the pit's edge, you and two others thrust the stake upward, driving it into his eye socket. He howls in agony, slamming his fists against his face. Fumbling blindly, you tumble backward as he sweeps his club, fragments splintering off the ground. The cave shakes, dust raining from the roof. You hear a soldier gasp, and you glance to see him pinned under a fallen beam. You ignore him, adrenaline surging. This is the moment you have prepared for since you left the Cyclops' name in jest. Nobody, you shout, recalling your earlier boast. His name is Nobody. The Cyclops bellows in confusion between sobs, pounding his chest and yelling for help from his kin. Nobody's hurt me. Nobody's hurt me. As he claws at his ruined eye, you and your men sprint for the entrance, hauling their freed comrade along. Rocks thunder behind you, but miraculously the boulder that wedged the mouth stays in place. You skid into the light and tumble into the waiting boat. Your men haul at the oars, and the ship clears the cave just as the Cyclops topples forward, cursing at every star in the sky. You glance back and catch his one good eye glaring, full of malice and disbelief. For a fleeting moment, you feel pity, but only for an instant. The sea carries you away, each stroke of the oars tipping the boat, farther from this den of terror. Behind you, thunder rolls, and you can't tell if it's a storm gathering or the Cyclops' lament echoing across the waves. You press your hand to your chest, feeling the wind on your tears you don't remember shedding. You reminded a godlike monster that you exist, and he will never forget the name you gave. The adrenaline ebbs, leaving exhaustion in its wake. You lean over the side and taste the salt water, sharp against your tongue, and promise yourself no more boasts. Not even quiet ones. Ahead, the horizon yawns wide, welcoming you back to safety, or at least to the next trial. You straighten, grasp the tiller, and mutter under your breath, "Let's hope Poseidon was drinking that night." With that, you settle into the rhythm of oars once more, knowing the sea is both friend and foe, and that the greatest monsters may yet lie ahead. You guide your ship into a sheltered cove, ringed by jagged cliffs that rise like cathedral spires. blocking the restless winds and churning waves. The sea here is unnaturally smooth, so calm, it almost feels like a shaded pool carved from the ocean itself. You climb into a small skiff and row toward a rocky ledge where Aeolus, master of the winds, resides. His dwelling is a curious sight, a palace fashioned from driftwood, shells and twisted iron anchors perched on a crag so narrow you wonder how it doesn't pitch into the sea with every swell. A servant greets you, her hair salt-streaked and crowned with seaweed, offering a silver flagon of wine. You lift it in salute and find the liquid surprisingly crisp, with an undercurrent of mint that tingles on your tongue. It's said that Aeolus is immortal, born of the same lineage that gave rise to Hermes, and that he once whispered secrets of the air to Zeus himself. You recall that in ancient Crete, a bronze statue of a wind god stood in the palace of Knossos, evidence of how deeply Greeks believed in controlling nature's caprice. The servant leads you up a flight of wooden steps carved with swirling patterns, each step echoing like distant thunder under your boots. At the top, Aeolus sits upon a chair of braided reeds, his eyes glittering with emerald light. He wears a robe woven of cloud wisps, and around his waist is cinched a leather bag as large as a man, stitched with bronze clasps. This bag, holds the 4 cardinal winds Boreas, Notus, Euros, and Zephyrus sealed away, so they cannot wreak havoc on the world. He smiles, a slow curl of his lips that hints at ancient mischief. "Welcome, Odysseus," he intones, "though you remember deliberately hiding your name from the Cyclops for a reason he'll never forgive. I have watched you endure storms, monsters, and the siren's song. For that I offer you passage home." He motions to the bag. "This gift is yours alone. But I warn you, only you may open it. If another hand dares, the result will be ruin." You nod, heart racing with relief. You reach out, but hesitating. You taste the moment. This is the closest. You've been to Aethia since Troy's burning towers. Imagine standing on your own shore again, the pine-scented wind in your hair, the laughter of your son echoing off olive trunks. Aeolus almost seems to share your longing. He rises, footsteps silent as the wind itself, and clasps the bag into your arms. It feels surprisingly heavy, as though burdened by invisible currents tugging at its seams. Before you leave, he gestures at a small scroll resting on a driftwood pedestal. It's inscribed with runes describing how to unleash the winds. A single turn of the leather cord, a whispered syllable, and the heavens break loose. You trace the markings with a fingertip, careful not to crack the brittle papyrus. An eccentric detail crosses your mind. Some scholars muse that Aeolus's palace could have been inspired by the coastal mound of Othrys, where sailors found stone carvings of windbags dating back to the Bronze Age. You clasp the scroll to your chest, bowing your head. Your generosity will be remembered, you promise, and step back. Aeolus inclines his head, and a faint breeze stirs the pale folds of his robe. You slip down the steps into your skiff, tugging the oar with one hand and holding the bag with the other. With each stroke you feel a subtle pulsation coming from the leathery container, as if the winds themselves strain to be released. The larger ship awaits, its sails slack and drooping like a weary beast. You climb aboard, breath-catching, at the sight of your crew staring wide-eyed at the leather bag slung at your side. You clear your throat. Then, you say, voice steady but hushed, we have the power to conquer the seas. A few eyebrows. Ray's powerful winds have soothed many a voyage, but they've also capsized ships when misused. You know this all too well from the tales of sailors lost in sudden squalls. As the dawn light spreads, painting the cliffs in rose gold, you secure the bag in the hold, tying it down with iron chains, and whispering a vow to protect it. Then you unveil the scroll and read aloud the sacred words, Zephyr, father of breezes, Boreas, lord of the north, Notus, bringer of storm, and Euros, rider of the east, sleep within your prison until I bid you free. You twist the leather cord once, and the bag hums, a soft vibration that ripples through the plank under your feet. On cue, a breathless hush falls over the water. Then, from the bag's seams, a ripple of wind escapes, gentle at first, rustling, your hair like a lover's touch, then growing into a steady breeze that fills your sails at last. The ship leans into the wind, the mast creaking in gratitude as the keel slices through the sea with renewed vigor. You grin, heart pounding, this is the fastest you've ever traveled. For hours, the wind propels you west, each wave pushed aside. Like drifts of snow, you close your eyes, letting the rhythmic whoosh lull your senses. You can almost feel Ithaca's olive groves brushing against your fingertips. A few of your men nap in the stern, their heads bobbing as if cradled by invisible hands. Even the usually restless dogs curl up on deck, lulled by the gentle current. You wonder if they dream of home too. Just before noon, your first mate approaches, concern etched on his sun-warmed face. Captain, he says, nodding behind you. One of the hands is curious about the bag. You turn to see a young sailor keen, eyes and restless fingers eyeing the leather bundle, like a magpie spotting a shiny coin. He moves closer, hand outstretched. In that instant, you feel a flicker of dread, as if something warns you in your bones. You step between him and the bag, voice low and firm. Hands off, you command. Sacred oaths bind this gift. The sailor withdraws, cheeks pale. You pat his shoulder, voice gentler. I know its secrets are tempting, but my command is your safety. He nods, retreating. A shudder runs through you. Temptation almost cost you before, and you won't let hubris guide you now. The wind remains steady until the sun dips low, tossing golden light across the waves. You decide to test your fortune. You gather your men and share a meal of dried squid, olives, and barley cakes, spiced with oregano you pilfered from Circe's island. As you eat, you tell them the story of the wind god's dwelling, how Aeolus once trapped a storm to protect an island, an act said to have saved an entire fleet. You watch their faces, lit by lantern glow, and feel a bond strengthened shared knowledge woven into the night. When the meal ends, you secure the sails for a gentle breeze and instruct the crew to rest. You stand at the helm, eyes fixed on the horizon, feeling the wind's pulse beneath your fingers. Above you, a single star appears, bright and unwavering. It reminds you of that day when sailors first navigated by stars alone, a practice dating to Phoenician mariners more than 3 millennia ago. Their courage in charting the dark seas paved your path tonight. You lean forward, inhaling the salty air, and murmur to the wind, "Take me home." The leather bag rests at your feet, silent and patient. You trust it will guide you as long as you guard it wisely. You settle into your quarters, the ship's gentle sway already coaxing your eyelids downward. Outside, the wind carries a lullaby of rustling sails and creaking wood, cradling you in the promise of Ithaca's shores. As you drift into slumber, you feel the wind's embrace, knowing that tomorrow brings you ever closer to home and to the mysteries that await beyond these waters. You steer the ship toward a rugged coast, where black volcanic rocks jut from the sea like the jagged teeth of some ancient predator. The sky is leaden, and a distant rumble hints at hidden depths below the waves. As you draw closer, the shore reveals itself, towering cliffs streaked with crimson iron deposits, battered by salt spray and streaked by waterfalls that plummet into foaming coves. The place feels abandoned save for the low, guttural growls that drift from hidden caves, promising both wonder and terror. You beach the long ship on a sloping stretch of coarse sand, and step onto shale, so hot it sears through your sandals. The grit underfoot crunches like broken pottery, reminding you that these lands have seen eruptions powerful enough to reshape entire islands. After all, the volcanic blasts on Santorini in the 2nd millennium BCE altered Greek civilization itself. You wince at the heat and bark out an order to the oarsman to haul the vessel further inland, away from the tide's reach. A narrow gorge beckons, flanked by columns of obsidian that glitter under a thin veil of mist. You gather a handful of local pebbles, cold and glassy, tucking them into your belt as good luck charms. An old mariner once swore that these stones could ward off thunderbolts, a fanciful notion, perhaps, but comfort is as valuable as steel in a place like this. You lead your men into the gorge, the walls pressing closer until the sky is just a sliver above. The air grows oppressive, heavy with the metallic scent of blood and sweat. You hear your own breath echoing, each exhale a soft hiss against stone. In the dim light, shapes shift, enormous footprints carved into bedrock deep, as craters suggesting creatures of colossal size. You follow the tracks with caution, the hairs on your neck standing to attention, rein in the urge to crack a joke about shopping for extra-large sandals. This isn't the time. Suddenly, a thunderous crash reverberates through the gorge as a massive boulder collapses behind you. Your heart leaps into your throat. Ahead, the spindly silhouette of a giant appears, broad shoulders draped in animal hides, a club in one meaty fist, and jagged teeth bared in a nonchalant grin. You realize this is no mere myth, but a Laestrygonian warrior, part human, part mountain, entirely dangerous. Your men freeze, spears raised but trembling. You take a steadying breath, stepping between them and the giant. Ease up, you call out, voice surprisingly calm. We come in peace. The giant snorts, and you swear the very ground vibrates beneath its feet. It hefts a colossal rock and hurls it at you. You dive aside, the stone shattering against the gorge wall. One of your soldiers isn't so lucky he's buried up to, his waist in pebbles, arms pinned helplessly. You seize the moment to shout, "Evacuate," and the men wade backward through the narrow pass, gathering the pinned soldier as they go. But more giants emerge, stepping out of side caverns like living boulders, each as tall as 3 men stacked. They grunt and lumber forward, felling trees with casual swings of their clubs. Your blood rushes hot in your ears. You grit your teeth and shout to the ship. Your comrades sprint back down the gorge, sand spitting beneath their sandals. You linger, grabbing a shard of obsidian and gritting your teeth as you hurl it at the nearest Laestrygonian. It glances off the giant's shin with a hollow clang. You mutter, "Well, that's awkward," and sprint after your men. The gorge GBBG Kong opens onto the beach in a chaotic swirl of half-buried longships and scattered oars. The giants are already there, heaving hulls aside like toys. Your crew fights to push your vessel off the sand, hauling at ropes while the Laestrygonians advance, boulders held high. You leap onto the deck and wrench a stout timber from the rail, brandishing it like a club, though it feels laughably small in your hands. A giant rears back to throw a rock, and you slam your timber into a coil of rope on deck, sending it crashing to the sand. "Oars," you bellow, and your rowers scramble to their benches. You latch onto the stern, bracing yourself against the ship's tilt as the rowers pull with all their might. The Laestrygonians roar in triumph and lift another hull to reveal trapped soldiers beneath. You feel a flicker of guilt, but banish it. This is war. These are monsters. With a final heave, your ship breaks free. You dig your heels into the sand, giving the rowers space to clear the beach. You glimpse a massive hand poised to smash the hull, so you fling yourself forward and yank an oar free, swinging it like a sword. The piece snaps under the giant's palm, making the creature grunt in irritation rather than pain. You writhe, free, and scramble to the deck, breathing hard, adrenaline humming in your veins. The rowers dive onto their benches, and the oars bite into the water. Each stroke is desperate. Every man knows that hesitation means doom. You whip your head around and see one of your lieutenants still on the shore, wrestling with a Laestrygonian who's cracked his shield. You shout his name, but the waves swallow your voice. Panic threatens to claw at your senses, but you force it down. Pull. You roar, planting your feet and grabbing the helm. The oars flash in the dying light as the ship gathers speed. The giants hurl farewell rocks, each thud echoing through the hull. One boulder grazes the stern, and water floods the deck in a sudden hiss. You curse and duck, then shout, "Bail fast!" A few soldiers grab water buckets. The rest keep rowing, defiance in each muscular thrust dot as the beach recedes. You feel the familiar ebb of dread replaced by relief. The waves buoy the hull, softening the rhythm of escape. You press a hand to your chest, panting as though you've run for miles. Around you, your men collapse onto the benches, some laughing in disbelief, others weeping quietly. You meet each gaze with a half grin. "Well," you say, voice hoarse, "we've certainly made an impression." A bruise blooms along your ribs where the first rock struck, but you rub it away, reminding yourself that pain is a small price to pay for life. You gather your crew on deck for a silent minute of respect for those lost and for the fierce land you've left behind. The pirates who carved their legend here are as fearsome as any god's wrath. Night falls, and the sea takes on a silvery glow under the moon. You send a few men below to patch the hull breach and heat water for tea, scented with wild thyme. You plucked in passing. You lean on the rail, inhaling the cool salt breeze, and let the lurch of the ship rock your fatigue into a gentle drowse. The ordeal feels like a fevered dream, distant and surreal, but the damp cloth pressed to your temple and the ache in your ribs remind you it was all too real. As you settle into the rocking cradle of the sea, you think of Ithaca again, olive groves under the sun, a roof sturdy enough to bear your weight, a family untouched by giants. You close your eyes and whisper to the moonlit waves, "Goodbye, Laestrygonia. May your giants feast on something more than sailors." The oars murmur a lullaby, and you drift toward rest, each breath carrying you closer to home. You limp back to your battered ship, hands raw from rowing and mind still echoing with the shouts and chaos of giants. Salt spray stings your wounds as you watch the last faint outlines of the Laestrygonian cliffs melt into the gray dawn. The sea, ever capricious, turns gentle again, glass-like, almost too still. You run a tired hand through your tangled hair, and think, not for the first time, that the gods must have a strange sense of humor. The men slump on their benches, haunted by the memory of monstrous hands crushing wood and bone. You offer them stale bread and a half-hearted joke. Look on. The bright side, at least nobody's turned into a frog yet. A few soldiers manage a laugh, though the sound is ragged. You push your fear down, forcing yourself to move with purpose. There are repairs to be done, sails to mend, wounds to dress. You become a physician, a quartermaster, a reluctant father. To exhausted children, the sun climbs, burning off the mist and revealing a low, wooded island on the horizon. Your lookout calls down, "Land." You squint and catch the gleam of tiled rooftops peeking through a wild tangle of trees, and beyond them the unmistakable curl of wood smoke. You steer toward the island, its beaches covered in black volcanic sand and glossy pebbles. The birds here are bright and raucous, their cries echoing over the surf, as if warning you away or inviting you in for trouble. You anchor in a quiet cove, the water green and clear as glass. You slip overboard, boots squelching in the mud, and lead a small group inland through sweet-smelling groves, where unfamiliar flowers burst in every color. The path curves around a thicket, and suddenly you're standing at the edge of a clearing, mouth dry with disbelief. Before you sits a sprawling stone house, draped with vines heavy with grapes. Smoke curls from a central hearth, and somewhere nearby you hear laughter feminine, warm, slightly mocking. Your men murmur uneasily. You raise a hand, signaling caution, and approach the house with a practiced bravado. "Let's hope the owner is less hungry than our last host," you say, and knock boldly on the door. It swings open before your knuckles land, and a woman steps into the sunlight. She's radiant golden hair coiled atop her head, eyes sharp as a hawk's, robes swirling in the morning breeze. This is Circe, sorceress of Aea, and the moment you meet her gaze you know the legends are true. She greets you with a slow smile, voice rich as honey. "Welcome, strangers. You look half-starved and twice as unlucky. Please rest, eat, drink." Your men, half-mad with fatigue, can't resist. They crowd inside, eyes wide at the feast laid out on wooden tables. Roasted boar, honeyed figs, bread warm from the hearth, pitchers of ruby wine. You hang back, scanning for signs of trickery, but hunger wins. You take a goblet and sip cautiously. The wine is sweet and heavy, heady with spices you can't name. Your men dive into the food, stuffing themselves in a frenzy of relief. Circe watches, amusement playing at the corners of her mouth. She circles the room, trailing a wand from hand to hand, humming a tune you almost recognize, an old lullaby, but with a sly undertone. As you finish your cup, you feel a strange warmth crawling up your limbs, a fuzziness clouding your head. You blink and shake it off, but the room tilts, the air shimmering. One by one, your crew begin to change. Their laughter becomes squeals, their faces elongate, hands curl into hooves, and in seconds, you find yourself surrounded by a horde of snorting pigs, your men, stripped of their humanity, eyes wide with confusion. Circe snaps her fingers, and the pigs herd themselves into a pen at the edge of the room, snuffling through straw for scraps. You stagger to your feet, head spinning, and draw your sword. Circe smiles, unruffled. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. I simply gave them what their appetites demanded." You glare, the sword feeling heavier than ever. "Change them back," you demand, voice low and desperate. She arches a brow. "Perhaps. But first, let's see what you're made of." You steel yourself, refusing to let fear overtake you. Circe circles you, eyes bright with curiosity. "Most break at this point," she says, voice almost kind. "Most beg." You refuse to poo. Bow. Instead, you call on the lessons of the last decade. Patience, cunning, and a bit of stubborn luck. You remember an old sailor's warning: never accept gifts from a stranger on an island. Well, it's a little late for that, but you're nothing, if not resourceful. From the shadows, a voice interrupts. Hermes himself, gliding in with sandals, barely brushing the ground. He presses a sprig of strange black-leaf herb into your palm. "Eat this," he whispers, lips quirking. "It'll guard your mind against her magic. But don't blame me if it tastes like old boots." You swallow the herb, gagging on its bitterness, and stand your ground. Circe raises her wand. What her spell passes over you like a breeze, you smirk. "You'll have to try harder." Her eyes flash, and for a tense moment, you wonder if you've pushed your luck too far. Then, to your astonishment, she laughs, a sharp, clear sound that chases the tension from the room. "Very well," she says, lowering the wand. "You're a rare breed, Odysseus. You may have your men." She waves a hand, and the pen erupts in a flurry of snorts and squeals as your crew transforms back, groggy, bewildered, covered in hay, but unmistakably human. They stagger to your side, grateful and embarrassed. You let out a shaky breath and crack a crook smile. "Let's never trust free buffets again," you mutter. They nod, sheepish but relieved. Circe, for her part, becomes oddly gracious, offering you clean clothes and a place to rest. You accept warily and allow your battered company a brief respite in her enchanted halls. At dinner she regales you with tales of other travelers, heroes, scoundrels, even a centaur who tried to outdrink her wine stores and lost spectacularly. You find yourself almost enjoying her company, though you never set down your goblet. For long, night falls, and Circe shows you to a high tower room with a view of the moonlit sea. You watch the waves glimmer, mind reeling from the day's magic and terror. Downstairs, your men snore in tangled heaps, full and safe for now. You lean on the windowsill, letting the night air cool your fevered skin. For a fleeting moment, you feel almost at home, as if you might stay here forever, warm, safe, wanted. but you know better. Morning will come, and with it the call of the sea, and the promise, however faint, of Ithaca. You hold that hope close, determined not to let any more magic or misfortune turn you aside. You wake in Circe's tower to the low coo of doves and the shimmer of sunlight filtering through ivy that creeps across the window. The air carries a trace of honeysuckle and wood smoke, deceptively peaceful enough to make you wish you could forget the journey home for just a few hours. For a moment you let yourself believe you're safe, surrounded by stone walls and laughter that drifts up from the kitchens below. But when you roll over and see your battered cloak on the chair, still crusted with salt and torn at the seams, reality taps you on the shoulder like an insistent creditor. Downstairs, your men gather around platters of fruit and warm bread, still weary after last night's transformation, but unable to resist the allure of a free breakfast. Circe herself glides into the room, her hair unbound and eyes watchful. "You look almost human today," she teases as you take a seat. You offer a half-hearted grin and swipe a chunk of bread. "Give me a day or two. I'll disappoint you soon enough." After the meal, she beckons you aside. "There's still one thing left undone," she says, voice low. "Before you sail, you must seek counsel with the dead." You raise an eyebrow, halfway between disbelief and annoyance. "Just when I was starting to enjoy your hospitality," you mutter. She ignores your sarcasm and leads you to a storeroom filled with jars and strange talismans. She hands you a black-handled dagger and a small jar of honey, her expression grave. "You'll need these where you're going. The underworld doesn't hand out maps." Your men blanch at the mention of the land of the dead. You steel yourself no one else is going to lead this crew, and you're pretty sure none of them are signing up for this side quest. You collect your supplies, sling your pack over your shoulder, and let Circe guide you down a winding path through ancient oaks, each trunk carved with symbols older than any city you've raided. At the edge of a shadowy grove, she points to a clearing where the earth dips toward a narrow, bubbling stream. "Dig here," she instructs. "Offer honey and blood, then wait. The dead will find you." You crouch, hands trembling, and carve a small trench in the loamy soil. You pour honey over the earth, then prick your palm and let your blood mingle with the sweet offering. The ground soaks it up greedily. "Stay sharp," Circe warns. "The dead are hungry for memory." You wait in the gloom, the world around you shrinking to the whisper of wind and the soft ripple of water. At first, nothing happens. Then the air chills, and a fog rises from the ground, thick as cream, swirling with shadows. Out of the mist, voices begin to murmur, a choir of regrets and lost dreams. Your throat tightens, but you grip the hilt of your dagger, steadying yourself. Shapes emerge, flickering between the trees' ghosts of warriors and mothers, kings and beggars, their faces both familiar and strange. The first to step into the clearing is Elpenor, one of your own men who perished on Circe's roof after a drunken fall, a warning, perhaps, not to mix wine with ladders. He looks less angry than embarrassed. "Give me a proper burial," he pleads. You nod, promising him a mound and a marker. Next, the shadows part for a tall, imposing figure, Tiresias, the blind prophet. His eyes are pale and unseeing, yet you feel his gaze settle on you with surgical precision. "Odysseus," he intones, Your path is lined with trials, but hope clings to those who outlast sorrow. He warns you of Poseidon's anger, the trials of Scylla and Charybdis, the temptations that await your crew. You listen, memorizing every cryptic word, even as your nerves fray with each new prophecy. You try to ask about home, about Penelope, your son, your father waiting on the hills, but Tiresias only smiles a little, as if he knows more than he says. Cleverness can be a blade that cuts both ways, he warns, before fading into mist. You resist the urge to demand more answers. It's always riddles with these legendary types. Nobody just tells you to pack a raincoat and avoid bad decisions. Figures crowd the clearing, pressing close. Your mother steps forward, her voice gentler than a summer breeze. "Remember me," she whispers, "and remember who you are." You swallow hard, tears stinging your eyes. She's gone again before you can respond. Other heroes appear. Achilles looking bored and itching for a fight. Agamemnon brooding and still complaining about his luck. Even the ghost of a Trojan warrior who seems more surprised than angry to find himself in this queue. You give a little bow, sorry about the horse, and he vanishes with a rueful grin. Each spirit takes a sliver of your strength, leaving you colder, lighter, a little more ragged at the edges. When the last ghost has spoken, the mist begins to dissipate, drawn back into the earth like morning dew. The grove falls silent, save for the soft sigh of wind through the oaks. You rise on unsteady legs, feeling every year you've spent at war and sea. You promise yourself a real bed and a long sleep someday. Circe waits at the edge of the grove, eyes searching your face. "You've seen enough," she says, and there's something almost kind in her tone. You nod, words caught in your throat. She leads you back through the forest, her hand warm on your shoulder. At her house, you gather your men and tell them only what they need to hear: warnings about storms and monsters, nothing about the faces you saw or the doubts you carry. That night, you sit by the fire, watching the flames dance and crackle. Your crew sits close, comforted by your presence, reassured by your silence. You let the heat soak into your bones and think of all you've left behind. You realize that memory is its own kind of magic, dangerous, intoxicating, but impossible to leave behind. As sleep tugs at your eyelids, you hold on to the images of home, promising not to let them slip away into the shadows. In the morning, you'll set sail again, carrying the weight of prophecy and the strange peace that comes from facing the past. The journey isn't over, but for the first time in a long while, you believe you might just make it back to the world of the living. You wake with the memory of ghostly voices still tangled in your mind, their warnings clinging like mist on your skin. The sun is barely a rumor beyond the treetops when you gather your men, each of them subdued, their laughter brittle and brief. You don't tell them how the dead looked at you, how prophecy can feel more like a shackle than a lantern. Instead, you steady your voice, give a quick nod, and order the ship readied for sea. A few men glance at you, their faces pale, but there's no time to explain. You have winds to chase and monsters to dodge, and sleep to catch up on, though you suspect none of that will come easy now. Circe stands on the shoreline, watching your preparations. She tosses you a satchel of dried herbs and offers a crooked smile. "In case you want to keep your memories your own," she says. You raise It ends salute, resisting the urge to ask her to come along. You know her answer already. With a final wave, you board the ship, feeling the loss of her magic like a sudden cold draft in an old house. The sea is a gray expanse, smooth as slate. For a while, the world is quiet, save for the creak of oars and the gentle slap of water against the hull. Then, as the wind freshens, you see the coastline curl in, cliffs rearing out of the water in a tight semicircle. On a ledge above the rocks you spot shapes 3, maybe 4 perched like statues, their hair streaming in the wind. The sirens dot your stomach flips. The legends say their voices can turn even the bravest heart to butter, luring sailors to their deaths with a song so sweet you'll throw yourself into the rocks just to hear the end. You're not eager to put that to the test. You order the crew to pack their ears with beeswax and grumble, some joke that it'll be an improvement, considering the way your singing sounds on stormy nights. You tell them to lash you to the mast just in case. No matter what I say or do, don't untie me, you warn. Even if I threaten to demote you all to bilge duty. You stand arms bound to the wood as the ships pass the headland. The world holds its breath. Then from above the singing begins soft at first, like a lullaby drifting through a cracked window at midnight. Your body tightens. The notes wind around your ribs and squeeze, a sensation both delicious and terrifying. You feel your resolve draining, replaced by a sudden wild yearning. Every word the sirens sing paints visions of home, of Ithaca's green hills, Penelope's laughter, your son's outstretched arms. You're certain you see them on the horizon, waving you in. Your voice catches in your throat. You shout, "Let me go. I need to get closer." But your men can't hear you. They row on, eyes fixed forward, ears safely blocked. You struggle, cursing the knots that hold you. The siren's song grows sharper, cutting through memory and hope, promising secrets and peace. You're certain if you could only reach them, everything would finally make sense. But your crew does not relent. The ropes hold. Sweat pours down your face, your muscles burn, but you can't escape. The ship inches along the cliffs, the music swelling to a fevered pitch, the promise of answers almost within reach. Then suddenly the song falters, replaced by a shriek of frustration. You risk a glance up. The sirens' faces have twisted, no longer beautiful, but desperate, lips peeled back in hunger. They realize you're passing by, their power slipping. You feel the pull weaken, the illusion dissolving like sugar in rain. You gasp, blinking as if surfacing from a deep pool. The wind fills the sails. The singing fades to a distant echo, replaced by the slap of the sea and the rough, glorious music of your own ragged breathing. The crew, seeing your signal, unties you at last. You collapse to your knees, head spinning, grateful for the pain. In your arms and the soreness of your voice, anything to prove you're still yourself. There's a moment of stunned silence, the kind that settles after a near disaster. Then one of your men plucks the wax from his ears and says, "For a minute there, Captain, I thought you'd finally found someone who sings worse than you." Laughter ripples across the deck, low and shaky, but real. You take a deep breath, letting it settle your nerves. If you were looking for a lullaby, this one will haunt your dreams for years. You lean on the railing, gazing back at the rocks where the sirens sulk, their voices silenced by distance and stubbornness. You wonder how many sailors they've claimed over the years. How many heard a song that promised everything they ever wanted, only to find jagged stone waiting underneath. The sea, as always, keeps its secrets. As the sun arcs higher, you check your bearings. The men ready the sails, laughter giving way to focus. You allow yourself a moment to savor the relief. You're one trial closer to home, one song survived, one curse dodged, though the memory of that melody will echo in your head long after the sea has carried you past this haunted shore. The breeze is strong and steady now, as if the world itself is urging you onward. You squeeze the mast, feeling splinters bite your palm, and whisper a quiet promise to Ithaca. You'll return, no matter how many songs or storms try to stop you. You set your jaw, point the prow toward the horizon, and let the wind and silence guide you forward. You watch the sirens' rocky island shrink behind you, their song a ghostly echo in the pit of your memory. The air turns sharper, the sky bleaching, into that harsh, brilliant blue that means trouble is ahead. The men sit quietly at their oars, trading nervous glances and avoiding your eye. You know what they're thinking. What's next? How many more ancient nightmares can one voyage pack? And before you run out of luck or out of crew, you stand at the prow, the spray cold against your face, and scan the horizon. There, rising out of the haze, you spot the narrowest pinch of water you've ever seen, a churning channel hemmed in by fangs of rock. Even from a distance, the sea here looks angry, a wild froth of white like teeth biting at the sky. On one side, jagged cliffs claw upward, dark with centuries of weather and sea salt. On the other, a monstrous whirlpool spins, sucking the waves into its spiral with a sound like an angry beast chewing bones. You realize this is the place Circe warned you about, the passage between Scylla and Charybdis. You run a hand over your face, trying not to let your nerves show. One side means losing a ship to the hungry jaws of a six-headed monster, the other to the bottomless maw of the whirlpool. No third option. The definition of a lose-lose, really a regular Tuesday. In your book, you gather the crew, laying out the plan with a calm. You're not sure you believe in yourself. We keep close to the cliff, no matter what happens, you say, voice steady. No heroics, no looking over the side. And whatever you hear, keep rowing. They nod, eyes wide, knuckles white on their oars. As you edge the ship into the strait. The noise grows first a growl, then a shriek, then a roar so loud your teeth rattle. Spray lashes the deck. The current grabs the hull, jerking it sideways. You plant yourself by the tiller, every muscle locked. The men dig deep, their strokes frantic, sweat pouring down their backs. The cliff looms over you, dark and sheer. You crane your neck to see the crag where Scylla is said to lurk. You catch a glimpse, a writhing mass, pale and terrible, her head snaking down to snap at the ship. You barely have time to shout a warning before you hear the screams. In a heartbeat, 6 men vanish, snatched off the deck with terrifying speed. Their oars clatter to the wood, spinning uselessly. You grit your teeth, holding the ship steady, even as panic rips through the crew. The smell of brine and fear fills the air. A flash of teeth, the sound of crunching bone, and then, just as suddenly, it's over. You stare at the empty spaces where your men once stood. The rest of the crew row harder, driven by fear and fury, desperate to outrun both monsters. You don't dare look back, not at the shadow twisting in the rocks, not at the foaming mouth of Charybdis on the opposite shore. The ship rides the narrowest strip of water, passing so close to the cliff you could reach out and scrape your knuckles on the stone, though you'd have to be crazy to try. The whirlpool howls to port, sucking down water and spitting it back up in a surge that rocks the hull. Your mind races, tallying losses, grief knifing through the pit of your stomach, but you can't stop. There's no time. You mutter a promise to remember each man by name, even as you bark orders for the rest to stay focused. The sea is no place for hesitation, especially not here. As the ship finally clears the strait, the water smooths out with unnatural suddenness. Silence falls, thick and heavy. The men slump at their benches, too stunned for words. You take a shaky breath and force yourself to count them, fewer than before, but enough to keep moving. You wish you could tell them it gets easier from here. You wish you could tell yourself the same. You find a scrap of canvas and bind it around the tiller, your hands trembling with fatigue. One of your men, the youngest, always quick with a joke, offers you a battered flask. You accept, taking a long swallow. The taste is sharp, the burn a small comfort. "We'll remember them," he says, voice raw. You nod, unable to speak. A gull wheels overhead, squawking as if to scold you for daring to cross these waters. You manage a crooked smile and call back, "Next time you can row." A few of the men chuckle, the tension breaking just enough to remind you you're all still alive. Barely, but alive. As the ship glides onward, you let yourself sag against the rail. You watch the cliffs shrink behind you, the whirlpool spinning itself into exhaustion, and promise you'll never look at a narrow channel the same way again. The memory of those 6 men will haunt you, faces, voices, inside jokes lost to the sea. You tuck their names away, adding them to the list you carry with you. A silent roll call you recite when the nights are too long. The water grows calm, the sky softens, and for a moment you allow yourself to believe you might just outrun fate. The ship floats on, scarred but unbroken, and you, Odysseus, survivor of monsters, take the wheel once more, steering toward whatever comes next, even as grief shadows every mile. You press onward, shaken but unbroken, your ship coasting along, the gentler waves beyond the deadly strait. For a while there's only the sound of water lapping at the hull and the soft, haunted breathing of your men. No one wants to be the first to break the silence. You grip the tiller, knuckles white, your thoughts snagging on every face you've lost. The sun sits heavy above, and the shadows of the cliffs slowly slide away, as if the monsters behind you have finally retreated into their caves. Eventually the coastline softens. A low, golden island appears on the horizon, green fields dotted with grazing cattle, their horns gleaming in the sun. The air carries the rich, grassy scent of life and plenty, and your stomach growls in protest at the memory of all you've endured. One of your crew points to the beach, voice trembling with hope. "Supplies, Captain, and a safe place to rest." You hesitate, the warning of Tiresias whispering in your ear. Don't touch the sacred cattle. But your men are gaunt, their eyes sunken with hunger and longing. It's a temptation designed to break even the strongest will. Food everywhere, the promise of comfort, and just enough danger to keep you on edge. You lead the ship ashore, dropping anchor in a cove shaded by olive trees. The crew stumbles onto the sand, collapsing in exhausted heaps. Some gather driftwood for a fire. Others fall asleep with faces pressed into the soft earth, as if hoping to dream the world back to kindness. As you walk the perimeter, you catch the faint scent of roasting barley and wild thyme. You remind your men firmly, but with what's left of your patience, that the cattle are not to be harmed. These belong to Helios, you say, voice stern. Any man who touches them brings ruin on all of us. The men nod, though you see the doubt flicker in their eyes. Hunger can turn a saint into a thief, and you know you're asking too much of men who've survived monsters and storms only to find their bellies empty. Night comes, cool and clear, the stars sharp and bright above. You gather the men for a supper of bread, wine, and whatever scraps you have left. The mood is grim but peaceful, the fire crackling as you tell old stories, hoping to fill empty stomachs with laughter instead of meat. You look into the flames and wonder if the gods are listening, or just waiting to see if you'll slip. As the hours drag by, the wind rises. You sense a storm brewing, not in the sky, but among your men. The hunger gnaws at them, louder than your warnings, and you catch two of them whispering near the cattle, eyes darting back to the camp. You confront them, voice tight. Don't do it. We've come too far. They mumble apologies, but as the night deepens and the fire burns low, your resolve is tested. The gods, it seems, aren't satisfied with storms and monsters. They want to see what you'll do when the enemy is your own weakness. Sleep comes in restless fits. You dream of home Penelope at her loom, Telemachus running through the halls, the scent of bread baking in the oven. When you wake, the fire is out, and the camp is oddly silent. Your heart pounds as you look for the men on watch, only to find them missing. You hurry toward the pasture, feet sinking in dew-wet grass. You arrive just in time to see the smoke rising, a spit turning slowly over the flames, the unmistakable scent of roasting beef filling the air. Several men crouch around the fire, chewing, greedily, eyes wild with guilt and hunger. You shout a furious, broken sound, but they only look up, jaws working, unable to stop. "We're starving, Captain," one says, voice raw. "We had no choice." You feel a coldness settle in your bones, a certainty that you've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. The sacred cattle are gone, the warning ignored. You want to rage, to weep, to turn the clock back by one meal. But you can't not. Here, not now. The rest of the crew wakes to the scent and the ruin, and some hang their heads in shame while others devour what they can, driven by a hunger deeper than fear. You pace the shore, fists clenched, cursing the gods, your fate, and your own helplessness. The sky darkens, the clouds rolling in thicker and faster than any storm you've seen. A voice seems to rise from the air, itself low, simmering with fury. The wind shifts. The waves begin to slap the shore with a new menacing rhythm. You know that Helios will have his vengeance. Even as the first raindrops hit your face, you sense the air tightening around you, the promise of disaster heavy and inescapable. You gather your men and force them back to the ship, barking orders louder than the thunder that now rolls across the sky. You lash the last bundle of supplies to the deck and cast off, the wind already howling. The oars bite into the churning sea, and the land of plenty fades into the storm's maw. You take your place at the helm, every muscle tense as the sky cracks open above. You whisper a vow to the gods. If you survive this, if you ever see Ithaca again, you'll build them altars of gold and never let hunger lead you astray. Lightning splits the clouds, illuminating the faces of your men-haunted, hopeless, yet still following you into the storm. The price of one night's weakness will be paid, and you brace yourself for what comes next, heart heavy with the knowledge that you saw it coming all along. Thunder crashes overhead, each peal splitting the sky like a battle cry. The sea, so calm just hours ago, is now a writhing mass of black and silver, whipped to frenzy by the wind. Your ship creaks and groans, ropes snapping taut, sails shredded to ribbons. The men huddle low, eyes wide, clutching the gunwales with fingers so tight their knuckles shine. You bark orders, trying to be heard over the roar, your own heart hammering as if it means to leap out of your chest and escape into the storm. Lightning forks across the clouds, illuminating the deck and fits and starts a stuttering nightmare that turns every face into a mask of fear and regret. You see the eyes of those who ate Helios cattle, haunted and hollow, as if they already sense the end drawing near. You try to rally them, shouting to bail water, to steady the mast, to lash down what's left of the supplies. But the storm is merciless. Each time you right the course, another wave slams the hull, driving you further from any hope of land. The gods are not subtle when they want to make a point. The mast splinters with a crack like a bone breaking, toppling overboard and dragging 2 men into the churning deep. You lunge, grabbing for the nearest hand, but it slips from your grip, lost to the howling void. The ship pitches violently, the world turning sideways. You find yourself clinging to the remnants of the rail, knuckles raw, boots skidding on the streaming deck. A voice so faint you almost miss it whispers you the chaos, not in words, but in the crackle of the storm itself. You sense anger, cold and ancient, the divine kind that won't be soothed by apology or prayer. You wonder if this is what a curse feels like, not sudden, but drawn out, a lesson hammered home with every bolt of lightning. The storm intensifies, the wind shrieking until your ears ring. The sea seems to rise up, wave after towering wave, until you lose sight of the stars, the moon, even your men. The world becomes nothing but water and fear. One by one, the ship's planks begin to give, splintering under the relentless assault. Barrels roll loose and crash against the sides, scattering the last of your supplies into the foam. You shout for the men to hold on, but most are beyond hearing, battered by spray and terror. You spot one of your oldest friends clinging to a piece of broken mast, face pale as wax. He meets your eyes, nods once, then disappears beneath the next surge. You swallow back despair and lash yourself to the main beam, determined not to be swept away. The ship, if you can still call it that, is little more than a bundle of shattered planks riding a mad torrent. And then, suddenly, silence. The eye of the storm, or perhaps just the moment before the end. The waves flatten, the wind softens. You hear only your own ragged breathing and the rattle of loose boards knocking together. You lift your head, salt stinging your eyes, and see nothing but open sea, a wasteland of gray water and floating debris. Your crew is gone, the ship broken beyond repair. You're alone, adrift on a makeshift raft, The taste of failure, as bitter as seawater on your tongue. You cling to the beam, letting the gentle rise and fall of the waves lull your battered senses. For a moment you consider letting go, surrendering to the pull of exhaustion. But something in you, stubborn and small, refuses. You grip the wood tighter, blinking against the spray, and force yourself to remember why you're here. Penelope, Ithaca, the promise you made to see it all again. Time loses meaning. Hours or maybe days slip past in a fevered blur. The sun bakes your skin, the salt cracks your lips, and delirium dances at the edges of your mind. You dream of home, the smell of fresh bread and oil lamps burning late into the night. Sometimes you see your lost friends in the shifting light on the water, their voices urging you to hold on a little longer. You don't remember when the island first appears, only that one moment. You are alone with the endless sea, and next a green smudge grows on the horizon. Hope claws its way back into your chest. You paddle weakly with your hands, muscles aching, vision tunneling as the surf drags you closer. The raft rides a final wave, tumbling you onto a narrow beach of silver sand. You collapse half in the water, half on land, too spent to move, eyes closed as the sound of gentle surf fades to nothing. For the first time in days you sleep without dreams, no gods, no monsters, no judgment. Just the hush of the wind and the steady beat of your own heart. Tomorrow you'll open your eyes and wonder where you've washed up, what new challenges wait. But tonight you let the sea cradle you, grateful for solid ground and the miracle of still being alive. However battered you may be, sunrise creeps across your skin, warm and gentle, the kind of light that makes the horrors of the storm feel like a half-remembered nightmare. You wake to find yourself sprawled on unfamiliar sand, your cheek pressed against a pillow of moss and seaweed. For a long moment you simply lie there, eyes closed, savoring the stillness. No shouting wind, no crashing waves, no men screaming. For help, just the hush of distant surf and the muted clatter of birds picking at shells along the tide line. You roll over, blinking against the gold and green of a strange new island. Your muscles ache with every breath, ribs tight and bruised, lips cracked from salt and thirst. You sit up slowly, half expecting some monstrous shape to come barreling out of the trees, but there's only the low sigh of wind through pine and myrtle. For once the land itself feels like it's in no hurry to test you. You stagger upright, brushing sand from your clothes, and take stock. No sign of your ship, no familiar faces, just you, a half-torn cloak, and the taste of failure in your mouth. You scan the horizon. The beach is narrow, curving into a rocky point at one end. Inland, tangled woods rise in lazy green terraces, dotted with wildflowers and berry brambles. It would almost be peaceful, if not for the emptiness pressing in from all sides. Hunger and thirst are quick to remind you you're still alive. You wade up the beach, feet sinking in damp sand, searching for water. A shallow stream gurgles at the far edge of the wood, and you drink deep, the cold sweetness reviving you a little. You gather handfuls of berries, their juice tart on your tongue, and find yourself almost grinning stranded, alone, possibly cursed, but still able to appreciate breakfast that doesn't require wrestling a monster or stealing from a god dot as you explore. You notice a strange song floating on the breeze, A melody not quite human, yet so hauntingly beautiful, it pulls you deeper into the woods. You follow it, wary but curious, stepping over tangled roots and the occasional turtle sunning itself in a patch of light. The trees thin and open into a lush clearing, and there she is, Calypso. She stands ankle-deep in a pool, dark hair spilling down her back, eyes bright as the sea itself. The moment she sees you, her smile is both welcoming and sad, as if she's seen too many castaways land on her shores, each one carrying the same stubborn hope in their eyes. "Welcome," she calls, her voice the music you heard through the leaves. "Rest. You have traveled far enough for one lifetime." You hesitate, every lesson you've learned screaming caution, but exhaustion and hunger win out. You accept her offer, letting her lead you to a grotto draped in flowering vines and sunlight. Inside, the air is cool and sweet, filled with the scent of baking bread and honey. Calypso gives you water, fruit, and a place to lie down, a soft couch carved from driftwood and moss. As you eat and rest, she moves quietly around you, never pressing with questions, simply tending to your wounds as if it's the most natural thing in the world. Days blur together in a gentle haze. Calypso speaks little of herself, though you sense a loneliness in her that matches your own. She listens as you tell stories of storms, giants, cunning escapes, and the endless ache for home. Sometimes she laughs, a low musical sound that chases the shadows from the corners of her grotto. Other times she studies you as if searching for a secret you might accidentally reveal. She offers you comfort, immortality, even a chance to forget the world beyond her island. For a moment you're tempted. The peace here is seductive, the prospect of never again facing hunger, grief, or gods with tempers like thunderstorms. You lie awake at night, weighing the warmth of her embrace against the stubborn pull of memory, the face of Penelope, the green hills of Ithaca, the laughter of your son, Dot. It would be easy to stay. No more trials, no more loss. Just endless days of sun, music, and the gentle arms of a goddess who asks nothing except that you never leave. Yet as the weeks pass, you feel a restlessness growing inside you, an ache that comfort cannot heal. Even paradise becomes a prison if it means forgetting who you are. One morning, you rise early and find Calypso watching the waves. She senses the change in you, the way your eyes drift toward the horizon. You dream of home, she says, not accusing, but quietly resigned. You nod, unable to hide the longing in your chest. She smiles, bittersweet, and brushes her hand along your cheek. Even the gods cannot keep a heart chained forever. When you are ready, the sea will show you the way. For now, you linger a little longer, letting Calypso's kindness mend your spirit and body. But already your thoughts turn outward, to the world beyond her island, and the unfinished journey calling you back to yourself. Dot days drift past in the gentle rhythm of Calypso's island, every sunrise painting gold across the waves every night, bringing soft music from the cave as she hums lullabies you half remember from childhood. Your wounds heal. Your beard thickens. Sometimes you almost convince yourself this could be enough, a simple life of warmth, sweet fruit, and a goddess whose smile promises shelter from every storm. But the longing for Ithaca refuses to die. Each evening, you wander to the highest point on the island and stare west where the sun sinks into the sea and shadows stretch toward home. You feel it like a splinter in your mind. Penelope at her loom, Telemachus growing taller in your absence, the olive trees you planted as a younger, more hopeful man. Even paradise tastes bland with unfinished business clinging to your heart. One morning, as you rinse your hands in a mountain spring, you hear footsteps behind you, light, swift, with the purposeful tread of someone who does not belong. You turn and find yourself face to face with Hermes, the messenger. He's as cool as a breeze, cloak fluttering, sandals dusted with gold, carrying an expression that says he'd rather be anywhere else. He regards you with mild amusement. Odysseus, he says, the gods are tired of waiting. Zeus himself sends word. Your stay here ends now. He tosses you a small bundle, a coil of rope, a sailcloth, and a hammer, then adds, Calypso must let you go. Don't argue with her. She knows. You follow Hermes back to the grotto. Calypso stands at the entrance, eyes shadowed, already aware of the verdict. You brace for anger or pleading, but she only bows her head. Even I cannot defy the king. Of gods, she says softly, build your raft, and I'll stock it with water and provisions enough for the crossing. You spend the next days working on the shore, lashing driftwood, together with strong vine, using tools Calypso brings from hidden stores. She helps you tie the knots, her hands steady and efficient, though her voice is distant. There's no magic in this raft, only the hard-won skills of a man who has built and rebuilt his future 100 times. Sometimes you pause to rest, sitting beside Calypso as the sun dips low. She doesn't ask you to stay. Instead, she tells you stories, her own lost loves, her own years of waiting. There's a kinship in grief, an understanding that neither of you can change the pull of fate. When she brushes your cheek, you feel gratitude and sorrow, but no regret. She offers you immortality one last time, a life unburdened by fear or longing. But you smile, gently refusing. Even endless days would not give me back what I've lost. You tell her, the raft, when finished, is a stubborn little vessel, 4 sturdy logs, a mast of twisted pine, and a square sail. Calypso loads it with jars of water, baskets of bread, dried fish, and a flask of wine. She presses a pouch into your hand, filled with sweet herbs for luck, and stands back as you tie the final rope. The moment of farewell is quiet, the world seeming to hold its breath. Calypso walks with you to the water's edge, her steps slow, each one a silent goodbye. If the winds are kind, you'll see your home again, she whispers. If not, remember there was one place you could have been at peace. She touches your face one last time, eyes bright with unshed tears, and you feel the ache of leaving behind a kindness you'll never quite repay. You push the raft into the surf, the wood creaking under your weight, and climb aboard. The sea is calm, for now the sun high and merciful. Calypso stands on the shore, watching until your little vessel is only a speck on the horizon. You raise a hand, uncertain if she can see, then set your face toward the endless blue. Hours pass in quiet labor, guiding the raft with a makeshift paddle, keeping an eye on the sky for signs of trouble. The wind is fickle, sometimes filling the sail with a strong push, sometimes dying away until you drift and bake under the hot sun. Each night you eat a little of the bread, sip the wine, and stare up at the stars, mapping constellations with tired eyes. Even alone, You speak to the wind, promising you'll see Ithaca, no matter how long it takes. On the fourth day, just as the bread is growing stale and the water runs low, you spot a shape on the horizon low, green with white cliffs that seem to glow in the morning sun. Your heart leaps. The raft lurches forward, caught in a sudden, miraculous gust. The sea's mood shifts, waves slapping playfully at the hull instead of clawing at it. You feel hope sharpening, clearing the old ache from your chest. But the journey isn't over. Storm clouds gather, darker and more threatening than any you've faced before. The wind whips into a frenzy, tossing the raft like a child's toy. You grip the mast, every muscle straining as the sea tries one more time to claim you. Lightning cracks overhead. The raft spins, jars crash, water soaks everything, and for a moment you wonder if even the gods know how this story ends. When the storm finally dies, you find yourself clinging to the battered remains of your raft. Arms numb, vision blurred by spray and tears. But land is near. Somehow, impossibly, you're still afloat, bobbing toward a strange shore dot with the last of your strength. You kick for the beach, collapsing into the shallows. The sand is warm, the air sweet. You lie there for a long time, grateful for every breath, knowing you've survived another trial. Above you, the clouds clear, and the sun climbs higher one more promise that somewhere ahead home waits. You lie in the sand, half-conscious, feeling each wave tug at your legs as if the sea is reluctant to let you go for good. When you finally push yourself upright, your limbs protest, weak and bruised, but alive. All you see is sky-bright, blinding, impossibly blue. It takes a while for the shapes and sounds of the new island to come into focus. The rustle of distant palms, the soft clatter of stones in the surf, the laughter of birds swooping overhead. You crawl beyond the tide line and collapse again in the shadow of a low dune. After so many trials, you no longer expect the world to offer you comfort, but for a brief spell, you simply let yourself breathe. You close your eyes, waiting for pain or hunger or a new disaster to remind you of your place in the world, but all that comes is a deep, exhausted quiet. Eventually, you muster the energy to stand and survey the unfamiliar landscape. The beach curves into a crescent bay, its ends tucked beneath rolling hills blanketed with wildflowers. Here and there, you see signs of life-faint trails winding into the green, smoke curling from beyond a copse of olive trees. Instinct tells you to be wary, to keep your head low, to move quietly. But every step you take feels lighter than the last. Even in this strange place, hope begins to grow. You follow a path away from the shore, the earth cool under your battered feet. You pass a stream, bending to drink and watch minnows dart through the clear water. You gather what wild berries you can, the juice sweet on your tongue, a simple pleasure that almost makes you forget how long you've been fighting to survive. As you round a bend in the trail, voices drift on the breeze, gentle, musical, and unfamiliar. You pause behind a thicket, peering out at a clearing where a group of people, men and women dressed in flowing tunics, are weaving baskets, tending goats, and laughing together. Their language is strange, but their faces are kind. Cautiously, you step into the open. The laughter dies down as all eyes turn to you. You realize how ragged you must look, salt-crusted, bearded, eyes wild with the memory of storms. One of the women rises, approaching you with gentle hands raised in welcome. She says something you don't understand, but her tone is soft, and her smile puts you at ease. The others gather around, offering water, bread, and a place by their fire. You accept, surprised by your own gratitude. After so much loss and suspicion, kindness feels almost alien. As you eat and rest, you study the villagers. Their leader, a gray-haired man with a staff of olive wood, sits beside you, listening patiently as you struggle to explain your journey with gestures and fragments of language. Eventually, someone brings a lyre, and the group begins to sing songs about the sea, about distant places, about longing for home. You close your eyes and let the music wash over you, feeling the knots in your chest loosen for the first time. In years. The next morning, you wake under a canopy of stars to the gentle tap of a hand on your shoulder. The village children have gathered, their eyes wide with curiosity. You smile and tell them a story, one with monsters and heroes and tricksters, careful to leave out the darkest parts. They hang on every word, and for a while, you remember what it's like to be a storyteller, not just a survivor. As the days pass, the villagers treat you as one of their own, teaching you their words, sharing their food, asking nothing in return but stories and a helping hand. You help patch a fishing net, gather figs, and learn to grind grain with a stone. The sun tans your skin and your body grows stronger, the ache of old wounds fading with each sunrise. But even as you settle into this gentle rhythm, a longing stirs in you each night, a yearning for your real home, for Penelope, for the stone walls and the olive groves of Ithaca. You watch the horizon, searching for a sign, for any hint that your journey is nearly done. One evening, as you help light the village fires, you hear whispers of visitors, strangers who have come from a distant city, bearing news and gifts. The villagers invite you to the main square, where a feast is being prepared. At the heart of the gathering stands a tall man draped in a fine cloak, his eyes sharp and shrewd. He listens to your story and, when you finish, offers you a place aboard his ship. "We have swift boats and loyal men," he says. "We know of Ithaca, and if you wish, we will see you safely home." Your heart leaps. For a moment you're afraid to believe. You thank the villagers for their kindness, promising you will never forget their generosity. They press tokens into your hands, a woven bracelet, a carved shell, a loaf of bread still warm from the fire. You embrace them all, the gratitude almost overwhelming, and follow your new companions to the water's edge, where sleek ships bob in the twilight. As you step aboard, the sails unfurl and fill with a strong wind. The villagers wave from the shore, their voices carrying across the water as a blessing. You stand at the rail, watching the land recede, hope blooming in your chest. With every mile, Ithaca draws closer, and for the first time, you allow yourself to believe you might finally be going home. The ship rides smoothly under a moonlit sky, each wave glimmering silver as the prow cleaves through gentle swells. You stay by the rail, unwilling to close your eyes even as exhaustion pulls at you, afraid you might blink and find this all a dream. The sailors around you work with quiet confidence, hauling ropes and tending sails, their voices soft and low as if not to disturb the spell that keeps you moving toward Ithaca. You marvel at the ease of their work, no shouts, no squabbling, just a steady, comforting rhythm. The night air is cool and salt-sweet, and every so often you catch a familiar constellation. Stars arranged just as they are above your own island. Hope sharpens, bittersweet and bright. With every league crossed, your longing grows. You wonder what you'll say to Penelope, how you'll look your son in the eye. You imagine the feel of stone steps beneath your feet, the scent of olive wood. Smoke drifting from your hearth. By dawn, the ship approaches a broader channel, the water turning the deep blue of a sapphire ring. The sailors point out landmarks, distant headlands, cliffs softened by early light, white sails in the distance. The captain, a shrewd, lean man named Alcinous, beckons you to the center of the ship. He studies you as if reading the years of hardship etched into your skin, then nods. Tonight you'll feast with us, tell your story. Let my people hear it from your own lips. As the sun climbs higher, you arrive in a bustling harbor. The dock is alive with the clamor of trade merchants, unloading jars of oil, women bargaining for fish, boys darting among the nets. You step ashore and are greeted not with suspicion, but with warmth and curiosity. The city feels prosperous, its people lively and full of laughter. You allow yourself a small, cautious smile. Alcinous's palace stands atop a hill, its doors open and welcoming. Inside, the air smells of honey and cedar. The banquet hall glows with torches, tapestries rippling on the walls. Tables are laden with fruit, roasted lamb, and golden bread. You're bathed and clothed in clean tunics, your hair oiled and brushed. The aches and grime of your long journey scrub it away. For a moment you hardly recognize yourself in the polished bronze mirror older. Yes, and marked by sorrow, but not yet broken. That evening the feast begins. Wine flows freely and laughter rolls through the hall. Musicians play soft, lilting tunes as dancers spin and leap, their feet moving in time to stories older than any war. You're given a seat of honor beside Alcinous. As the night deepens and the firelight flickers, the guests turn to you. They want to hear it all, Troy, the gods, the monsters, the heartbreak and the hope. You begin slowly, wary of reopening old wounds. But the faces around you are eager, sympathetic, moved by every twist and turn. You speak of the sack of Troy, the tricks that won the war, and the long, bitter road home. You recall the friends lost, the storms endured, and the moments you doubted you'd ever see Ithaca again. You don't sugarcoat your mistakes, nor do you dwell on your pain. Instead, you tell the truth stranger than any myth, rougher than any song. As you speak, you notice the room quiet, even the servants pausing to listen. There's an understanding in their eyes, the kind that comes from people who have lost much and still found a way to celebrate. When you finish, the hall is silent for a breath, then erupts in applause and cheers. Alcinous stands and clasps your hand. Odysseus, you are truly worthy of a king's welcome. Tomorrow, my ships and men will see you to Ithaca. Tonight, you rest and remember that you are among friends. You bow your head, humbled and relieved. The wine tastes sweeter, the bread softer, the music brighter. You find yourself laughing, if only for a little while, forgetting the weight of all that's behind you. Later, as the feast winds down, Alcinous brings out gifts, cloaks woven with silver thread, a bronze sword, a chest of treasure. Take these, he says. May fortune greet you on your journey. That night, sleep comes easily. You lie in a bed softer than any you've known for years. listening to the muted sounds of the palace, the clink of plates, the fading echo of song, the gentle wind beyond the shutters. You let gratitude fill the hollow places inside you, and, for the first time in a long while, you dream not of storms or monsters, but of homecoming and peace. When morning comes, you rise early, ready for whatever lies ahead. Ithaca is close now, close enough to taste on the air. You stand at the rail as Alcinous's ship glides out of the harbor, gifts stowed safely below deck, and a last meal warming your belly. The early morning mist curls around the prow, softening the world to a haze of silver and blue. The sailors work in practiced silence, every rope coiled just so, every sail trimmed to catch the breeze. You watch their hands, remembering all the journeys you've survived, and feel a quiet respect for these men who live by wind and wave. The coastline slips away behind you, replaced by the endless rolling blue of open sea. Each gust of wind fills the sail with a deep, satisfying snap. You close your eyes and breathe in the scent-salt, sun-warmed wood, the faint sweetness of citrus from the captain's cabin. Every sense is alert and alive, every nerve tuned to the possibility that this is the voyage that will finally carry you home. You spend the day with the crew, helping where you can, tying knots, keeping lookout, sharing stories. Laughter comes more easily than you expected. The captain, an old friend of Alcinous, tells tales of storms and shipwrecks, of close calls and lucky escapes. You share a few of your own, careful not to make yourself a legend in their eyes, but willing to let them see the survivor beneath the scars. As the sun dips low and the sky softens to pink and lavender, you catch your first glimpse of Ithaca. On the horizon, a shadowy shape against the fading light, familiar and yet changed by the years you've been gone. Your heart beats faster. You grip the rail, almost afraid to believe it's real. The captain comes to stand beside you, offering a steadying hand on your shoulder. You'll be there by dawn, he promises. No more wandering. Night falls. Gently, the crew lights lanterns and sings quiet songs as the ship slides through calm waters. You take your rest on deck, lying beneath the stars with nothing but a folded cloak for a pillow. Sleep is uneasy but hopeful, every dream filled with olive trees and laughter, the sound of Penelope's loom echoing through the dark. Just before sunrise, you wake to a sudden hush. The sailors stand at attention, their faces alight with anticipation. You push to your feet and look ahead. There it is, Ithaca, your home, outlined by the gold of the coming dawn. The land is just as you remember, craggy hills, sharp and green, the rugged slope of Mount Neriton rising behind, the clustered whitewashed houses nestled near the harbor. The sight is enough to steal your breath. The captain guides the ship toward a hidden cove, dropping anchor where the cliffs shelter you from prying eyes. It's best to return quietly, he says with a wink. Surprises are sometimes safer than homecoming parades. You grin, knowing he's right. Too many years have passed. Too many dangers still lurk in your own holes. You shoulder your pack, accepting final gifts from the crew, a knife with a pearl-inlaid handle, a sturdy walking stick, a slice of soft cheese wrapped in leaves. The captain clasps your forearm, eyes bright. Go on, Odysseus, go home. With that, you slip over the side, wading through cool water to the shore. The stones feel rough and blessedly real beneath your feet. You kneel, pressing your hand to the ground, whispering a silent thank you to whatever luck remains. You move inland at dawn's first light, the island waking slowly around you. Birds call from the olive groves. Goats bleat on distant hillsides. Every step stirs memories childhood. Games, long walks with your father, the laughter of servants as they pressed grapes in the courtyard. You find a hidden path through the pines, winding up toward a ridge that overlooks your land. The breeze smells of sage and thyme, and for a moment you stand in silence, letting the fullness of homecoming wash through you. You keep to the shadows as you make your way toward the heart of Ithaca, wary of being seen before you're ready. Too much has changed to risk a reckless return, but the sight of your homeland fills you with a peace and a hunger deeper than any you've known. At last, the journey is almost over. All that remains is to reclaim your place, to see your wife and son, to set right what time and absence have made fragile. You pause on the ridge, watching the sun climb above the sea, painting Ithaca gold. For the first time in years, you truly let yourself believe you are home. The sun warms your back as you move quietly along the winding ridge path. Ithaca spread before you like a half-forgotten dream come suddenly real. Every step is familiar, and foreign olive trees gnarled by time, the gray-blue shimmer of the sea below, the soft bleating of goats grazing in the distance. The air smells of thyme and old earth, a scent you've carried in memory through every storm and exile. You pause, crouching in the shadow of a low wall, scanning the horizon. There, far off, the sprawl of your own land, your own roof, so close you could almost shout, but you don't shout. Caution runs in your blood, now honed by years of hard lessons. You pull the cloak tighter, keeping your head down as you cross the rocky terraces. The world is waking, slowly farmers calling to oxen, the distant ring of a blacksmith's hammer, the faintest thread of smoke curling from a cook fire. Your throat tightens as the wind shifts, carrying the familiar tang of hearth and harvest. You could close your eyes and believe it's any year before the war, any ordinary morning before the gods decided to turn your life into a story. You slip from shadow to shadow, sticking to overgrown lanes. You avoid the main road, knowing too well how news travels in small places. Your name, your face, they carry weight here, but so does the risk of being seen by the wrong eyes. Ithaca's hills are full of ears, and you want to decide the hour of your return, not leave it to fate or gossip. You pass the well where you and your friends once carved your names into stone. The marks are faded but still there, half buried by moss, a hidden record of simpler times, before you became legend and loss. You almost smile, the memory catching at your heart. For a moment you are just a boy again, daring and wild racing. The length of the fields with nothing to lose dot. As you climb higher, the wind sharpens, tossing your hair into your eyes and cooling the sweat on your brow. You stop behind a tangle of laurel, gazing down at your home from above. The house is there larger in your memory, but solid and unchanged. The white walls dappled by sunlight, the old fig tree leaning over the courtyard, the door painted the same shade of blue. You drink in every detail, the ache of longing rising. Inside you like the tide, and then you see them, your servants moving in and out, the livestock penned in tidy rows, the signs of life and labor undisturbed. The world did not end when you left. It carried on changed, but stubborn as ever. You find yourself strangely grateful, not for the years lost, but for this chance to see your home whole before it knows you're here. The hours pass in slow gold and green, the land humming with bees and birds, and a peace you'd nearly forgotten. You sit in the sun, knees drawn up, hidden by the wild fennel, and watch the day turn. You let the sights and sounds fill you until you almost forget the weight of years and wounds. The longing for home is so sharp you can barely breathe. As twilight comes, you hear a different sound, the distant laughter of children, the bark of a dog, voices rising, and the familiar patterns of a household settling for evening. You let yourself drift in memory, tracing the lines of the hills with your eyes, searching for the face of someone you love. You almost call out, but you know you must wait. The light fades, shadows pooling under the olive trees. The house glows with lanterns, the gentle hush of nighttime rituals settling in. You stay hidden, heart pounding, rehearsing the words you might say, the way you'll reveal yourself, what you'll do if you're recognized or if you're not. You press your palm to the earth, grounding yourself, telling your story to the stones and the roots. For a little while longer, you are just a traveler on the edge of his own life, not yet a hero returned, not yet a husband or father reclaimed. The promise of Ithaca wraps around you, both comfort and ache, and you let yourself believe that after everything, this moment of silent hope might be the sweetest part of all. You linger in the shadows beneath the old olive tree, the hush of twilight heavy around you. Every part of Ithaca is familiar yet distant, as if the years have stretched your memories thin but never broken them. You watch the world you left behind, feeling like a ghost at the edge of your own story. Your home, your land, your people, they all move through their routines without any inkling that the man they mourned and mythologized is watching. So close he can taste the wood smoke drifting from his own hearth. Moving silently, you skirt the garden walls and slip down the narrow lane that leads to the servants' quarters. Here the shadows are deeper, the smells of earth and grain strong in the dusk. A dog, old and gray-muzzled, limps up to sniff your hand. You freeze, heart in your throat, but the dog only wags his tail weakly and settles by your feet, as if he recognizes something beneath the years and salt and scars. You kneel, ruffling his ears, and for a moment the world narrows to the warmth of this loyal creature, the one friend who remembers you without doubt. With the dog at your side, you move toward the low stone shed where tools are stored, and a thin wisp of lamplight leaks beneath the door. Inside you hear the voices of servants, low, tired, talking of daily troubles and the weight of too many strangers eating at the king's table. You listen, piecing together the state of your house from half-whispered complaints. The suitors, you learn, are everywhere loud, greedy, sure of their own welcome. Penelope is strong but tired, holding them at bay with her wits and her weaving. Your son, Telemachus, has grown into a man in your absence, but he walks with the burden of never knowing if his father will return. You pull the cloak tighter, heart twisting with pride and guilt in equal measure. At last, when the voices fade and the lamp goes out, you slip inside. The room is cool and dusty, lined with old rakes and baskets of grain. You crouch behind a stack of kindling, waiting for your chance to move unseen. You know every squeak of the floor, every crack in the wall, and you use these small secrets to your advantage. stepping lightly until you find a bundle of clothes worn, patched, but clean. You change quickly, pulling a hood low over your face. You leave the shed and make your way to the main courtyard, moving from shadow to shadow. You keep your head down, imitating the slow shuffle of a beggar. If any of the suitors notice you, they see only a stranger, another piece of scenery. You keep your silence, mouth dry, and slip toward the far end of the hall where the old swineherd's hut sits hidden in a stand of reeds. You tap softly at the door, and when it opens you are greeted by Eumaeus, the swineherd who raised you like a second father. For a moment he doesn't recognize you. You see suspicion in his eyes, then pity, then finally a flicker of something deeper, a recognition that goes beyond appearance and finds the truth in your posture, your voice, your eyes. You whisper your name. His hand flies to his mouth. Tears well in his eyes, and he pulls you into a rough embrace, muffling his sobs in your ragged cloak. Inside, the hut is warm and filled with the smell of roasting meat and fresh bread. Eumaeus, shaking with emotion, offers you food and drink, pressing you to eat as if to prove you're real. You take small bites, watching him carefully, letting the reality of homecoming settle on your shoulders like a cloak. He tells you in hushed tones of the suitor's arrogance, of Penelope's endurance, of the hardship your people have faced. You listen, anger simmering in your chest, but you also feel hope. These are stories of survival, not defeat. As darkness deepens, you hear a quiet knock at the door. Eumaeus opens it and admits another figure, a tall, cautious young man. You see in his face a strange mixture of fear and resolve. For a heartbeat, neither of you speak. Then, as he draws closer, you recognize your own son, grown tall and strong. Your heart stutters, all your practiced words forgotten. Telemachus hesitates, uncertainty in his eyes. "Who are you?" he asks, voice low, searching. You look at him, really look, seeing the boy you left behind, now tempered by years of waiting and wondering. You pull back your hood and whisper his name. He stiffens, jaw tight, eyes wide. For a moment he can't believe, can't trust that hope is finally true. You reach out, voice trembling. "It's me, Telemachus, your father." The words hang in the air, fragile as glass. He searches your face, weighing every memory against the stranger before him. Suddenly the tension breaks. He steps forward, arms wrapping around you in a fierce, desperate hug. Neither of you speaks. There are no words for a reunion years in the making. You stand in the swineherd's hut, the past falling away, and for the first time since Troy, you feel the ache of loss give way to something whole. You tell him what you can, the dangers, the gods, the promise you made to return. He listens, absorbing every word, his own eyes shining with pride and relief. You speak of patience, of caution, of the need to keep your return secret until the moment is right. Eumaeus, loyal as ever, promises to help. Together the three of you begin to plan. You pass the rest of the night huddled by the fire, sharing bread and hope. In the heart of Ithaca, hidden from prying eyes, you reclaim your identity, not as a legend, not as a ghost, but as a father, a friend, and a man returned at last. The embers of the fire glow low as the hush of dawn seeps through the cracks of Eumaeus's old hut. You sit close to Telemachus, still not quite believing that you're reunited. watching as the light slowly reveals the dust and the honest clutter of a working man's home. Eumaeus pours water from a battered jug, his movements gentle, as if worried that any sudden sound might shatter the fragile peace blooming in the room. You share a simple meal, breaking hard bread and passing slices of salted pork between you. The taste of home is almost too much a flood of memory and hunger that aches in your teeth and bones. Telemachus watches you with wide, searching eyes. He keeps glancing away and back again, as if afraid you'll vanish with the shadows. You reach out, resting a hand on his shoulder, feeling the shape of him, the solid, wary strength of a boy grown into a man. You want to tell him everything at once, how you survived storms, monsters, hunger, and heartbreak, how every day away was another weight on your heart. Instead, you listen to him. He tells you about the suitors who have taken over your house, about Penelope's endless weaving and unraveling, about the constant pressure to act like a king when all he's ever wanted was a father. You hear the hurt and hope in his voice, the longing for something he's never really had, a family made whole. You draw him close, whispering a promise. We'll take back our home, but we must move carefully. Our enemies watch every door, every path. You describe the plan as it forms in your mind, mapping it in low voices over bread and water, while Eumaeus listens and nods, loyal as ever. You'll keep your disguise. Telemachus will go about his duties, gathering information, waiting for your signal. Eumaeus will carry messages, keeping your presence secret. For now, patience is your strongest weapon. The day brightens outside. Through the small window, you glimpse the sweep of olive trees silvered by the morning breeze. You remember planting some of them with your own hands, teaching Telemachus how to dig the earth, showing him how roots take hold if given time and care. That same patience, you realize, is what will win back your life here. You watch as Eumaeus goes about his chores, feeding pigs, checking fences, making sure no rumors slip into the wrong ears. You help where you can, splitting wood, mending nets, small tasks that anchor you in the reality of your return. Telemachus works beside you, the awkwardness of reunion gradually giving way to quiet understanding. You begin to recognize pieces of yourself in his gestures, the tilt of his head, the stubborn set of his jaw as midday approaches. A stranger arrives at the door, a cowherd you remember from years ago, though his face is lined and sun-darkened now. He greets Eumaeus and Telemachus with a nod, eyeing you with curiosity. You keep your head bowed, shoulders hunched, and let the others do the talking. The cowherd brings word from the palace. The suitors grow restless, their feasting louder, their demands bolder. Penelope's patience is running thin, and whispers swirl about forcing her hand in marriage. You swallow a surge of anger, forcing your hands to stay steady on your work. When the cowherd leaves, Telemachus sits at your side, voice tight with worry. Mother suffers for us both, he says, and the suitors mock her grief. You feel the old fire stir inside you, the urge to act, to storm the halls and drive them out. But you know better now. Every triumph has cost you, and you will not risk your son or your people with rashness. You spend the afternoon teaching Telemachus the art of waiting, how to hide in plain sight, how to listen for what is not said, how to gather allies without drawing suspicion. Eumaeus nods in approval, reminding Telemachus that the gods themselves favor those who use their minds as much as their swords. You sense the young man's frustration. He's waited all his life for this, and now you asked him to wait a little more. You squeeze his shoulder, promising the moment will come. As evening settles, Eumaeus prepares a stew rich with herbs and beans, and you eat together, the three of you cramped around the fire. You share stories, laughter creeping back into your voices. Telemachus asks about Troy, about the adventures you never meant to have, about what it means to come home changed but not broken. You answer as honestly as you can, leaving out the darkest moments, but sharing enough for him to understand you are still his father. Even if the world calls you something else, night falls with the softness of old wool. Telemachus lies beside the fire, eyes drifting shut, trust easing the lines from his face. Eumaeus nods in his chair, a guardian even in sleep. You stay awake, listening to the small, safe sounds of the hut, the slow breathing of your son, the shift of Eumaeus's feet, the faint crackle of the dying fire. For a while, you let yourself believe the world outside has grown quiet, that the palace is just another distant story, and that this moment is the reward for every pain endured. Tomorrow you will move closer to your enemies, closer to reclaiming all that was lost. Tonight you are simply a father with his son, savoring a peace you almost thought you'd forgotten. You close your eyes, holding on to this sliver of home. In the hush of the swineherd's hut, you gather strength for the day ahead, one step closer, one secret at a time to reclaiming the life you fought so long to return to Dot at dawn. A quiet resolve settles over you. You rise before the others, listening to the soft snorts of pigs outside and the low, comforting snore of Eumaeus by the fire. Telemachus stirs as the first golden light trickles in, and you catch his eye. No words needed. There is something unspoken between you now, an understanding forged in the furnace of shared purpose and the long, strange arc of your return. You eat a hasty breakfast, Eumaeus handing out rough bread and dried fruit. The swineherd keeps an eye on the door, wary as ever, his loyalty a shield against the outside world. The plan is simple but dangerous. You'll enter the palace as a beggar, cloaked and hooded, while Eumaeus leads you through the servant's path. Telemachus will go ahead, as if nothing has changed, to avoid suspicion. In your hand, you clutch a staff, part walking stick, part comfort, part weapon if the need arises. You set out just as the day breaks in full, dew shining on the grass, the air sharp and alive. Eumaeus leads the way, taking a winding route through tangled groves and hidden lanes, careful to avoid the main road. You stay low, the rough cloak scratching your skin, every sense sharpened by caution. Telemachus walks ahead, shoulders set, passing as just another restless youth with business at the palace. The palace looms larger as you approach, a cluster of white stone walls and colonnades rising out of the earth, sun-warmed and stubborn. As the day you left, the sounds of the household grow louder, servants calling, livestock braying, the faint ring of laughter and the sharper clang of metal. You feel the pulse of life behind those walls, every note both familiar and threatening. You enter the side courtyard through a narrow, crumbling arch, the path littered with olive leaves. Eumaeus whispers instructions, guiding you with the sureness of one who has walked these paths all his life. Head down, Don't speak unless spoken to. Let them think you're harmless. You nod, heart pounding, as you step into the world. That once was yours and is now a nest of vipers dot inside. The palace is a different world full of light and noise and the scent of roasting meat. The suitors lounge on benches, drinking wine, tossing bones to snarling dogs, their laughter hard and careless. Servants dart about, careful to stay out of their way. You keep your hood low, eyes on the ground, following Eumaeus past columns. You helped raise under beams you remember sanding smooth in your youth. One of the suitors tall, sharp-eyed, dripping in gold spots you. He sneers, waving you over as if summoning an errant pet. What beggar brings dust to our table? He mocks, earning laughter from his friends. You bow low, keeping your voice rough and unremarkable. Just a hungry traveler, my lord, hoping for a scrap. He tosses you a bone, more insult than kindness, and you let it fall at your feet, playing your part to perfection. Telemachus moves among the suitors, his face a careful mask of indifference. He pours wine, listens to their boasting, and slips out now and then to share quiet glances with you and Eumaeus. Each look is a silent promise, soon, soon. Your patience is a blade you sharpen with every slight, every cruel joke tossed your way. You watch as Penelope enters the hall, her presence shifting the room. She walks with quiet dignity, her eyes tired but unbowed. The suitors rise, each eager to impress, their flattery dripping and desperate. She barely glances at them, offering a cool word here, a gentle nod there, but her mind is elsewhere. You ache to call out, to rush forward and end her suffering, but you hold yourself back. The time is not yet right. Lunch is allowed affair platters. Past, arguments flaring over portions and games. One suitor picks a fight with another, and you watch the tempers play out, learning the shape of their rivalries. Eumaeus slips you small scraps from the kitchen, and you eat with your back to the wall, ears open to every conversation. Afternoon drags on. The suitors grow drunker, their talk turning to crude jokes and boasts of what they'll do when Penelope finally chooses a husband. Telemachus listens with gritted teeth, his patience wearing thin, but you give him a subtle signal weight. You must know them all, their habits, their strengths and weaknesses. You spend hours observing, cataloging. Threats and possible allies among the servants dot as dusk settles. A stranger enters a beggar, rougher than you, his eyes sharp and hungry. He tries to take your seat by the fire, but you stand your ground, refusing to be pushed aside. The suitors jeer, goading you both into a scuffle. You hold back, letting the other man tire himself out, then subdue him without cruelty, earning a grudging laugh from the suitors. They clap you on the back, calling you a worthy foe, never suspecting the man beneath the rags. Night falls, lamps flickering along the walls. The suitors drift away to gamble and plot, their voices low and conspiratorial. You slip out to the courtyard, meeting Eumaeus and Telemachus beneath the olive tree. There you exchange everything you've learned, names, grudges, plans for the contest to come. You sketch the first steps of your strategy in the dust with your staff, every move shaped by patience and purpose. You return to the shadows of the hall, curling up by the dying fire, feigning sleep while your mind races. You think of Penelope, of your son, of the future that hangs in the balance. You gather strength from the stone beneath your back, from the rough cloak around your shoulders, from the memories of every hardship that brought you here. Tomorrow the real test begins. You close your eyes, letting exhaustion claim you, trusting that the work of years of journey, of endurance, of loss has brought you to this threshold for a reason. In the heart of your own palace, unseen and unbroken, you are Odysseus again. The return has truly begun. The palace is still dark when you wake. The only light, a thin blue thread slipping under the hall doors. You stretch slowly, muscles stiff from sleeping on stone, and listen to the silence of the sleeping house. Eumaeus stirs near the hearth, rising to stoke the coals and prepare breakfast for the suitors. Telemachus enters quietly, his eyes alert, face carefully composed. The three of you share a few quiet words, rehearsing the plan for the day. Today you remind them you must all act your roles perfectly. No pride, no rash moves, no hint of what's coming. The suitors begin to rise. Loud and hungry, their laughter echoing from room to room. They snap orders at servants, demanding wine and bread before the sun has fully cleared the hills. You stay in your place by the wall, cloak pulled tight, letting yourself fade into the background. Some jeer, tossing crusts and insults in equal measure. You meet their taunts with lowered eyes and a humble nod. Let them believe you harmless dot. Penelope glides through the hall, her expression serene and untouchable. She checks the work of the maids, exchanges a brief word with Eumaeus, and pauses near you. For a breathless moment her gaze lingers. You sense something flicker, a memory, a question, the brush of recognition. But she moves on, carrying her burdens with quiet dignity. Your chest aches with longing, but you remind yourself to wait. Timing is everything. Later, as the suitors feast and brag, Penelope calls for her old nurse. You watch as the two women speak in hushed voices, glancing now and then at you and Telemachus. You wonder if Penelope suspects, if hope stirs behind her careful mask. Eumaeus returns to the kitchen, passing you a few scraps. Telemachus pours wine, his face revealing nothing, though you see the storm building behind his eyes. By midday, the suitors have grown restless. One proposes a contest of strength, and soon the hall fills with boasting and laughter. They hurl stools, wrestle, and throw dice. You watch, measuring each man their speed, their tempers, their rivalries. You study their faces, the way their eyes slide over Penelope and Telemachus, always assessing, always hungry for more. As the sun climbs, Penelope appears again, this time holding your great bow. The sight of it nearly undoes you polished wood, carved with scenes from your youth, the same weapon you left behind when you sailed for Troy. She addresses the suitors, her voice ringing clear across the hall. You all wish to claim this house. Let it be decided by skill, not words. Whoever can string Odysseus's bow and shoot an arrow clean through 12 axe heads may claim my hand. A hush falls. You watch their faces surprise, then swagger, then growing unease. Each man in turn lifts the bow, struggles to bend it, sweats and curses. Not one comes close to stringing it. Their pride turns to anger, and the hall seethes with muttered complaints. You remain silent, the weight of destiny settling on your shoulders. At last, you step forward, cloaked and bent, and ask, voice roughened with age and dust, "May I try?" Just a beggar, nothing more. The suitors erupt in jeers, threatening to toss you out, but Penelope intervenes. "Let him try," she says, her gaze steady on yours. "A test is a test." Eumaeus and Telemachus help you to the front. You grip the bow, feeling the smooth, familiar wood. Your heart pounds, but your hands are steady. With a single motion, you string the bow, the old strength returning as if summoned by fate itself. The hall goes silent, every eye on you. You notch an arrow, draw back, and let it fly. The shaft whistles through all 12 axe heads with ease, thudding into the wood beyond. The room erupts, some gasp, some curse, others simply stare, understanding. Blooming across their faces, Telemachus moves to your side, his hand resting lightly on your arm. Eumaeus slips away, gathering your few loyal servants. The moment is here. You shed the beggar's cloak, standing tall as yourself at last. You who have eaten my bread, courted my wife, and squandered my home, your time is over. Your voice rings out, and for the first time the suitors know fear. They scramble for weapons, but you and Telemachus are quicker. Eumaeus and the cowherd bar the doors. The suitors plead and threaten, but mercy has no place here, not for those who would have destroyed all you love. Arrow after arrow finds its mark. The hall is a storm of fury and justice, every wound you suffered given back 100-fold. Telemachus fights by your side, his strength and courage dazzling, his loyalty unbreakable. When it is done, silence falls. The floor is littered with the debris of arrogance, broken spears, overturned tables, shattered pride. Your household stands by you, loyal and trembling, as you survey the ruin. You take Penelope's hand, your fingers trembling, your heart raw with relief and disbelief. She searches your face, uncertain, hope battling caution. A quiet moment passes. Then you speak, telling her of your journey, of all you have lost and found. She tests you gently, questions only you could answer. When at last she believes, she weeps in your arms the long years of pain and waiting dissolving in the safety of your embrace. Night falls. The palace is yours again. For the first time in a lifetime you are home. The palace lies in a hush as deep as the sea, shadows stretching long across blood-streaked flagstones, and the remnants of shattered pride. You stand in the ruined hall, the bow still warm in your hand, Telemachus at your side, Eumaeus and the cowherd posted at the barred doors. The echo of battle still rings in your ears, a blur of cries and arrows, of blades on stone, of desperate men learning too late that you were never truly gone. You breathe in, the scent of smoke and sweat and ancient wood filling your chest. For a moment, all you can do is stand still, listening to the sound of your own heartbeat thudding in the silence. The suitors so bold just hours ago lie scattered like broken chess pieces, their ambitions ended. Your home is yours again, but the cost hangs heavy in the air. Slowly you begin to move. You gather your loyal servants, calling them by name, offering a word or a touch to calm their fears. Some weep openly, joy and shock mingling on their faces, as they realize the beggar by the fire was Odysseus all along. Eumaeus wraps you in a fierce hug, muttering thanks to the gods and every ancestor he can remember. You squeeze his shoulder, gratitude a lump in your throat. Telemachus, wild-eyed but uninjured, stands tall at your side. You clasp his arm, pride mingling with relief. You see yourself in him, the stubborn jaw, the steadiness, the refusal to yield. You want to speak 100 words, but all you say is, "You fought bravely. You are truly my son." He grins, exhausted, and for a moment the years of absence are washed away. There is work to do. You set your men to clearing the hall, stacking broken tables, righting chairs, gathering the weapons and armor left behind. You call for water to wash the floors, for clean cloths to tend wounds, for lamps to drive back the shadows. Your servants move quickly, driven by relief and nervous energy, reclaiming their duties with hands that tremble at first but soon grow steady. The palace, long abused, begins to look like home again. You send Euryclea, your old nurse, to wake Penelope and bring her to you. She enters slowly, her face pale and eyes rimmed with red. She does not run to you, not yet. Instead, she stands at the threshold, searching your face for the truth. "If you are truly Odysseus," she says, "tell me something only we would know." You smile, tired, aching, and so full of longing you almost forget to breathe. You tell her of your secret, the bed built from the living olive tree, roots sunk deep in the earth, immovable, unbreakable dot. Her composure shatters. She rushes to you, tears spilling down her cheeks as she throws her arms around your neck. For a long time you hold each other in the middle of the ruined hall, surrounded by the mess of vengeance and justice, and none of it matters. Only her. Only home. You guide her to a seat, taking her hand as she studies you, fingers tracing every scar, every new line etched by years of wandering. She laughs softly, trembling with relief and disbelief. "I waited for you," she says, voice breaking. "I never truly believed you were dead." You press her hand to your lips, promising her you are here to stay, that the world's cruelties are behind you now. The night deepens. You gather your household, old and young, loyal and fearful, and speak to them not as a king, but as a man who has seen the edge of the world and returned. You tell them the story, sparing no detail, the monsters, the storms, the loss, and the hope, the promise that you carried home like a flame cupped against the wind. They listen in awe, the old nurse clutching her apron, the cowherd wiping his eyes, the kitchen maid smiling through her tears. Telemachus sits beside you, face glowing in the lamplight. For once he is not the boy who waited, but the man who stood and fought. You feel the bond between you thicken, a thread unbroken, woven now by courage and trust. Eumaeus and the others press close, their presence grounding you as you face the new world you must build together. You set aside the weapons, gather bread and wine, and bid your family to eat. For the first time in years you share a meal with those you love, laughter mixing with tears, stories tumbling out as the candles burn low. Penelope leans against your shoulder, your hand in hers, her head finally at rest. You meet the gaze of each person in turn, seeing not just servants and kin, but survivors, your people, your heart's companions, all tested and unbroken. When the meal is done, you carry Penelope to your bed, the old olive wood frame as solid as ever, roots tangled deep beneath the house. You lie beside her, letting her warmth and breath convince you this is no dream, no trick of the gods. She traces the scars on your arms, the stories in your hands, the weariness in your eyes. "Sleep," she whispers, "you're home." And so, in the silence that follows storm and sorrow, you rest not as a king or a hero, but as a husband, a father, a man finally at peace beneath his own roof. Morning comes soft and golden, the kind of light that seeps through old shutters and dust motes, bathing your home in a hush that feels almost sacred. You open your eyes to the sound of gentle breathing beside you. Penelope, her hair spilled across the pillow, lies still in sleep, a faint smile curving her lips. You reach for her hand, barely daring to believe the world has finally allowed you both this small miracle, a moment untroubled by loss or longing. You rise quietly, careful not to wake her. You move through the house like a memory, touching walls and doorways, taking in the details that survived the chaos. Your old shield hung above the hearth, the faded tapestry Penelope wove so long ago, the worn edge of the kitchen table marked by your son's childhood knife. These small things ground you, anchoring you in a present you fought so hard to win back. Dot in the courtyard. The air is crisp, dew shining on the grass, birds already bickering in the fig tree. Eumaeus is there, raking the ashes from last night's fire, a look of satisfaction on his weathered face. He greets you with a nod and a quiet, "Welcome home, my king." But you shake your head, clapping his shoulder. "Just Odysseus today. Let the kings sleep a while longer." He grins, teeth bright in the morning light, and the sound is as warm as fresh bread. You set to work with him, gathering eggs, fetching water, letting your hands remember the honest rhythm of daily chores. The simple work soothes you, reminding you that survival isn't always a battle. It's these small acts, washing, mending, planting, that build a life worth returning to. Eumaeus talks about the fields, the stubborn old mule, the lazy boys hired for the olive harvest. His voice is a comfort, threading you back into the pattern of home. Telemachus joins you before long, his step lighter, a new confidence blooming in his face. You marvel at how much he's changed, the way he walks, the depth in his eyes, the quiet strength that wasn't there when you left. He asks questions about the world beyond Ithaca, about the ships and cities you've seen. You answer sometimes with stories, sometimes with a shrug, always careful to leave out the bitterness. He listens closely, already weighing your words against the future he will one day shape. After breakfast, Penelope appears, her presence filling the room with a warmth that makes you ache with gratitude. She sits beside you as the household begins to stir. Servants whisper, unsure but hopeful, daring to believe that peace has truly returned. You share a meal together, bread and honey, figs and cheese, laughter mixing with a few tears that no one bothers to hide. When the table is cleared, Penelope leads you to her loom, showing you the tapestry she wove to keep the suitors at bay. The colors are bright, the threads pulled tight, each line a testament to patience and hope. She presses your hand to the fabric, and you promise her you are here for good, that no wind or war or whim of the gods will take you from her side again. She believes you, and that belief is the greatest gift the world has left to give. The day unfolds gently. You walk the land with Telemachus, pointing out the borders of your orchards, the spring where you once fished for eels, the tree where he fell and scraped his knee as a child. The people you pass greet you with awe, but you see joy flickering behind their careful eyes. You stop to talk, asking after their families, listening to their worries, their relief. Each story draws you back into the fabric of Ithaca, thread by thread. You return home before dusk, tired but content. Penelope welcomes you with open arms, and you sit together in the fading light, sharing stories that belong only to the two of you. Telemachus joins you, and the three of you talk into the evening, laughter rolling through the halls that once echoed only with sorrow. As night falls, you gather your household, servants, and kin for a final reckoning. You speak plainly, promising justice, kindness, and a future built on the lessons of all you've suffered and survived. You name those who stood by you, honor those you've lost, and offer forgiveness to any who would serve the house of Odysseus in peace. Some weep, some smile, but all kneel to you, not just as king, but as the man who returned. Later, after the house grows quiet, you lie awake beside Penelope, listening to the familiar sounds of home, a dog barking, the wind in the trees, the slow, steady heartbeat of your land. You realize that peace is not a prize you win once, but something you must keep choosing day after day. You promise yourself you'll fight for it, not with sword or cunning, but with patience and love. Sleep takes you gently. You dream of a future where your son's laughter fills the halls, where the fields flourish, where every dawn is just another chance to love the life you've won back. The next day dawns bright and cloudless, painting every stone and olive leaf in gold. You stand at the threshold of your home, feeling the weight of so many years and losses pressed into the solid earth beneath your feet. Ithaca's fields stretch out before you, alive with the songs of birds, the lowing of cattle, the sound of distant laughter as your people begin to believe in peace again. There's no parade, no loud proclamation, just the quiet reassurance that you belong here, among these hills and groves, as surely as the roots of the olive tree that anchors. In your home, you move through your day with the steady purpose of a man reclaiming his life. The routine is almost meditative. You walk the border of your land with Telemachus, pointing out old landmarks and hidden paths. He listens intently, eager to inherit both your stories and your wisdom. Together you inspect the granaries, the fields of barley beginning to ripen, the vines climbing their trellises in tangled green waves. You show him how to check the grain, how to judge the health of an olive tree, how to read the signs of weather in the shape of clouds and the scent of the sea breeze. At the edge of a grove, you pause, remembering your own father teaching you these same lessons. You tell Telemachus of those days, the trust, the mistakes, the laughter. He smiles, and you see hope taking root in him, a confidence growing strong enough to withstand any future storm. For the first time since your return, you allow yourself to imagine Ithaca not just as a place of survival, but as a legacy that will outlast you. Back at the house, Penelope tends the gardens with the maids, her movements graceful and sure. The sunlight catches her hair, and you are struck by the quiet courage she carries, the strength it took to endure so many years of waiting and doubt. You walk to her side, lending a hand with the baskets of herbs and flowers she gathers for the kitchen. For a while, there's no need for words, just the simple pleasure of working together, sharing the day as you always meant to. Inside, the household moves with new energy. The maids sweep and sing, the cooks prepare meals from fresh bread and goat cheese, the dogs nap in patches of sun by the door. The halls ring with life, no longer haunted by fear or uncertainty. Eumaeus oversees the storerooms, his voice warm and steady as he trades stories with the younger servants, guiding them as he once guided you in the afternoon. You call a gathering in the central courtyard. Your friends, your people, your kin come together under the broad sky. You stand before them not as a king on a throne, but as one of their own, a farmer, a father, a neighbor who returned. You speak simply, promising to rebuild what was lost, to reward loyalty, and to heal any old wounds with fairness and kindness. The words are met with quiet nods, tears, a ripple of relief that passes from face to face as the sun sets, painting the world in amber and purple. You find yourself at the door of your home, Penelope by your side, Telemachus standing tall just behind. The old nurse Eurycleia lights lamps along the halls, and the familiar glow fills you with gratitude. Tonight you share a meal in the great hall, roasted lamb, sweet wine, bowls of figs and olives. You tell stories, some new, some old, laughter rising like music above the clatter of plates. Even the youngest children sense that something special lingers in the air, a feeling that things are right, at least for now. Later, when the house is quiet and sleep drapes itself across every room, you walk the length of your land beneath, a sky thick with stars. You pause at the edge of the vineyard, breathing in the cool night air, listening to the gentle sounds of your island settling into rest. Every stone, every tree, every distant bark of a dog feels like a benediction, a promise that you are truly home, that the journey is finally done. You return to Penelope, slipping into bed beside her, the weight of all you've endured finally easing. She turns to you, eyes shining in the moonlight, and for the first time in so many years, you feel whole. The pain of absence fades, replaced by the simple, profound peace of belonging. You fall asleep with her hand in yours, heart steady and full, knowing that whatever tomorrow brings, you will face it together, rooted in love, anchored by hope. And so beneath the ancient roof of your house, in the land that made you, you rest Odysseus home at last, dreaming not of monsters or storms, but of a future bright with promise and peace. A new rhythm settles over the days, both strange and familiar, as you slip back into the slow, steady pulse of life on Ithaca. The urgency of battle, of shipwreck and danger fades with every sunrise. Now your challenges are measured in small things, repairing a leaking roof, settling disputes among neighbors, deciding where to plant a new row of olives before the next rain. The simplicity is its own kind of reward, a balm you never knew you'd crave until peace was finally yours. In the early morning, you rise with Penelope, the house quiet except for the soft thud of your footsteps on ancient stone. She moves gracefully through the kitchen, her hands skilled as she shapes dough for bread. You join her, awkward at first, but willing to learn the art of the daily loaf. Together you laugh when the flour dusts your hair and nose, your hands, brushing as you knead the dough. The kitchen fills with warmth and the scent of home, and you realize that this, more than any feast or conquest, is the victory you fought for. Telemachus spends his days with you, learning to manage the herds, to mediate between shepherds who argue over lost sheep, to speak with calm authority in the council of elders. You watch him grow, pride blooming in your chest as he listens, considers, and makes decisions that carry weight. He is no longer the restless boy you left behind. He is your partner, your legacy, the future of Ithaca itself. You pay respects at your father's house, sitting quietly with the old man as the cicadas drone in the shade. He listens to your stories, sometimes nodding, sometimes adding his own. You sense the relief in him, the way his shoulders relax now that the line endures, that his son and grandson stand together on the land he once ruled. You speak of forgiveness, of letting old wounds heal. The years have softened you both, making room for patience where once there was only pride. Village life resumes its gentle chaos. Children run through the market, women trade baskets of figs for handfuls of barley, fishermen brag about the size of their latest catch. You join in the small rituals, fixing a broken fence, lifting a child to pick fruit, offering a blessing for a newborn lamb. The people of Ithaca begin to accept your return not with fanfare, but with grateful familiarity. They bring you gifts a length of dyed wool, a cask of honeyed wine, fresh cheese, still warm from the press. Each gesture is simple, but each one roots you deeper in their hearts. Word spreads to neighboring islands that Odysseus is home, and envoys arrive bringing cautious greetings and subtle questions. You greet them with the dignity of a king and the humility of a man who knows the cost of arrogance. Over shared meals you listen to their concerns, weighing the needs of your people with the wisdom hard won on distant shores. You promise alliances, peace, and honest counsel. Slowly trust returns, building bridges stronger than any fleet or army dot in the afternoons. You wander the fields alone, letting the wind and sunlight remind you of all you have survived. You walk the high cliffs where you once gazed out, longing for home, and now you look inward, content. Sometimes, as dusk gathers, you meet Penelope beneath the fig tree, the one that shaded your childhood and now shelters your future. You talk of dreams, of things lost and found, of hopes you dare to voice out loud. Nights are quiet, the house alive with gentle sounds, crickets singing, the low murmur of servants, the crackle of fire in the hearth. You sit with your family, recounting tales by lamplight, the glow-warming faces once drawn with worry. The laughter is easy now, the silence is comfortable. Every glance a reminder that you are not alone. You write letters for Telemachus to study, tracing the lessons you want him to carry forward: mercy and judgment, courage in the face of the unknown, and the wisdom to cherish peace over pride. He absorbs it all, his questions thoughtful, his resolve unwavering. Sometimes you find him staring at the stars, dreaming of journeys yet to come. But always he returns to the land, to his mother's smile, to the home you rebuilt. One evening, as a storm grumbles far off the coast, you gather everyone in the hall. The doors are barred, the lamps burn bright, and the wind rattles the shutters. You share a meal, nothing grand, just bread, olives, and cheese, but it tastes sweeter than any banquet. Together you remember those who did not live to see this. Peace, and you give thanks for every second chance. Before bed you pause at the window, watching the rain streak the stones. You draw Penelope close, holding her until the world narrows to just this room, this night. In the gentle hush you make a vow to never take these days for granted, to live not in the shadow of your legend, but in the light of each new morning. You lie down, breath easy, heart steady, knowing that the true journey was not in crossing seas or slaying monsters, but in finding your way back to this quiet, ordinary, beautiful life. Your days fall into a pattern as steady as the changing tides, each one a quiet affirmation that you have returned not only in body, but in spirit. The palace, once echoing with strife and fear, now hums with life children playing in the courtyard. the scent of baking bread drifting from the kitchens, the steady rhythm of work and laughter weaving through every hour. Ithaca has not forgotten hardship, but it chooses every morning to hope for something better. You find peace in the smallest acts, a shared cup of water with a shepherd after a long walk in the fields, sitting in the shade with Telemachus as he quizzes you about the distant lands you once sailed. He is insatiable, his mind hungry for stories and wisdom. You tell him what you can, how courage sometimes means saying no, how kindness can turn an enemy into an ally, how luck favors those who prepare, but never those who rely on it alone. Penelope is always near, her presence grounding you when the memories threaten to pull you away. She tends to the gardens, guides the household, and still finds moments to steal away with you beneath the stars. Sometimes you watch her move through the halls, sunlight tangled in her hair, and marvel at her strength. You know now that she is the true heart of this home, the one who kept the flame alive when all the world said it should have gone dark. You walk the boundaries of your land often, greeting old friends and new faces, listening to their joys and complaints. A fisherman tells you of nets torn by storms. You help him mend them, your hands learning the old patterns again. A young girl brings you a wounded bird, and you show her how to set the wing, how patience can work a kind of magic all its own. In these moments you find a peace that battle never offered. Festivals return, first in whispers, then with music and color. You sit among your people as they dance and sing, the shadows of the past slowly retreating. The harvest is good, the wine flows, and even the elders smile at the children's games. Telemachus joins in, laughing with the reckless joy of someone who has found his place. You remember the ache of loss, but you choose not to let it define you. Each night you whisper thanks to the land, to the spirits of those you loved, to the luck that brought you home. The old wounds heal, those scars remain. There are moments when you wake before dawn, heart pounding with memories of dark waves and faraway thunder. Penelope senses these shadows and draws you close, her hands steady, her voice a lifeline in the dark. She tells you, as she always has, that you are here, you are safe, you are loved. The words root you and the fear ebbs, replaced by gratitude. So sharp it almost hurts. One afternoon, Telemachus comes to you with a question about mercy. He asks how to judge fairly, how to forgive without forgetting the lessons hard times have taught. You lead him to the old olive tree and sit together, sharing the silence before you answer. You'll know you are wise, my son, when you can see yourself in those who wrong you, and you still choose what is just. He nods, the weight of leadership settling on him like a mantle he is finally ready to bear. Season follows season, and the island blooms. You restore old terraces, plant new vineyards, build a small shrine on the hill for those lost at sea. The people mark the passing years by the good harvests and the steady hand of a family restored. Your story spreads, but you learn to let it go, to live not as a legend, but as a father, a husband, a friend. Evenings are your favorite time. The household gathers for supper. Eumaeus, now older but still sharp as ever, shares a joke. Penelope pours wine, her laughter filling the hall. Telemachus brings news of the fields and the villages. You listen, content to let the voices of those you love rise and fall, weaving you into the fabric of Ithaca. Before sleep, you sometimes walk the cliffs, the moon casting silver across the sea. You remember those who never returned, and you offer a silent prayer for all travelers far from home. You know in your bones that what matters most is not the journey or the trials, but the return, the promise kept, the quiet days spent in the company of those you cherish. You slip into bed beside Penelope, her warmth a gentle anchor, her presence a daily miracle. She smiles in her sleep, her hand finding yours. The darkness outside is gentle now, the world at peace. Your story, once a song of wandering and loss, has become a lullaby of belonging. As sleep claims you, you are content Odysseus no longer, the exile, but the heart and soul of his own home. Your days are filled with the gentle certainty of belonging. You rise at dawn to the clatter of pails and the rustle of waking servants, the world fresh and new every morning. You savor these quiet beginnings, Penelope stirring beside you, the cool breath of the sea slipping through the window, the call of doves in the courtyard. You walk through your house and lands with purpose, no longer a stranger or a beggar, but a father and husband, a man whose journey has finally brought him home. Telemachus walks with you, full of questions and ambitions. You teach him the patient art of leadership, how to listen before speaking, how to weigh counsel, how to see past anger to the heart of a dispute. He listens carefully, eager to be worthy of the trust your people place in him. Together you judge the simple cases of daily life, a quarrel over grazing rights, a lost goat, a fence toppled by last night's wind. You show him that justice is made up of small mercies, and the courage to stand firm when it matters. In the afternoons, you join Penelope in the gardens, kneeling beside her in the soft earth. Her hands are skilled, her laughter a music you carry through every task. You plant new vines, uproot weeds, share stories of gods and mortals, of storms survived and promises kept. Sometimes you pause, simply watching her, marveling that after all the years of longing, you are here together, sunlight dappling her hair as she reaches for your hand. You oversee the rebuilding of storerooms and sheds, roofs patched and doors mended. The work is honest and unhurried, the laughter of your people echoing in the halls and fields. Eumaeus, grayer but unbowed, tends the pigs and shares advice freely, his loyalty a comfort that needs no words. The dogs bark and chase each other. Children play tag among the olive trees, and for every worry that visits, a dozen joys take its place. Festivals fill the calendar once more. There are days of music, of feasting, of dance beneath lanterns strung. From fig tree to fig tree, the whole island gathers, and you join the circle of laughter and story, never needing to be the center. Your people ask for tales of your travels. Sometimes you give them the wildest adventures. Other times you describe only the hunger for home, the taste of fresh bread after months at sea, the comfort of a fire on a cold night. They understand. The greatest stories you've learned are not the ones of gods and monsters, but of endurance and return. At night, you find yourself drawn to the old olive tree in the courtyard, the one that marks the heart of your home. You sit beneath its branches, tracing the scars in the bark, remembering your youth, your father's voice, the dreams you carried to Troy and back again. Telemachus often finds you there, and you sit in easy silence, sharing the wisdom that needs no speech. You speak softly of what matters most: forgiveness, the patience to build what war cannot destroy, the strength to let go of anger when the time comes. Penelope joins you, her arm twined through yours. She speaks of the women of the house, their worries and hopes, the small triumphs and quiet joys. She teases you about the patchy rows in your vegetable garden, about your attempts to teach the youngest child to fish, about the way you always sneak the last fig from the basket. Laughter is easy now, a balm over old wounds. As summer fades to autumn, the fields turn gold and the air grows cooler. The island's rhythms slow. You walk with Telemachus along the headlands, teaching him to read the weather in the curl of a cloud, to sense the change in the wind before the first raindrop falls. He learns quickly, and you see pride in his eyes, a pride that mirrors your own. There are nights when you and Penelope sit by the hearth, flames painting gold on the walls, and you recount your journey one last time. Not for the drama or the glory, but to remind yourselves how far you've come, how much you endured, and how grateful you are to have found each other at the end of it all. Your people thrive. The island prospers. New children are born and named. Fields yield abundance. The old wounds heal. Even those who once doubted your return accept you as their own. Your deeds woven into the stories told on winter nights. Peace, you realize, is not the absence of struggle, but the steady presence of love, of forgiveness, of hope renewed each day. As you drift to sleep, Penelope's head on your shoulder, you understand that your truest journey is not behind you, but ahead. Every dawn is a promise, every dusk a gentle benediction, every breath a gift reclaimed. You close your eyes with a quiet smile, ready for the next sunrise, content in the heart of Ithaca. The winds of autumn turn, bringing cool mornings and crisp evenings, the air scented with wood smoke and ripening figs. You move through your home as a man reborn, never hurrying, never looking over your shoulder for old enemies. The palace and its grounds are peaceful, the walls strong and the hearts within them stronger still. The scars of the past remain, but they do not ache as they once did. Every day is a quiet blessing, proof that after storms and loss, peace can take root if you tend it with patience and care. Telemachus stands beside you at dawn, learning to greet each challenge not as a threat, but as another chance to grow. You walk the fields together, marking boundaries, planning for the next season's planting. He is full of questions about the world, about war and peace, about love and loyalty. You answer honestly, sometimes with a story, sometimes with a question of your own. What would you do if you were king? You ask, watching him weigh the answer with care. He tells you he would lead with mercy first, and you see in him the hope of Ithaca's future. Penelope is the soul of the house, guiding every detail. With a gentle hand, she weaves and mends, sings softly to the children, and keeps the old nurse company in the warm afternoons. The two women share stories of the days before your absence, laughter rising in the kitchen with the scent of baking, honey cakes. You listen, sometimes just from the doorway, content to let their joy wash over you. The world outside may still be wild, but inside these walls, you have found a harbor. In the village, you are welcomed as an old friend. You attend the wedding of a shepherd's daughter, stand beside a fisherman as he launches his boat, share wine and stories at the harvest feast. The people of Ithaca have long memories, and every kindness you offer is returned in full. Even the smallest gestures, a helping hand, a shared joke strengthen the invisible bonds that hold your home. together. Some afternoons you visit your father's grave, clearing away leaves and telling him of the year's blessings. You bring Telemachus with you, teaching him that leadership is more than ruling. It is remembering, honoring, and forgiving. The old man's spirit feels close, a silent blessing carried on the breeze. You leave a sprig of fresh laurel and return. To the present, heart lighter, the children of the house run wild through the halls, chasing dogs and each other, their laughter echoing. You remember your own childhood climbing olive trees, daring your friends to race to the sea and back. Now you join the games, letting them tackle you, pretending to lose until they tumble with glee. Penelope watches, her eyes bright with happiness, and you know she is grateful for every ordinary moment. The days grow shorter, the nights longer and cooler. You gather the family by the hearth each evening, sharing bread and stories, talking of the day's work and tomorrow's hopes. Eumaeus still brings news from the fields. The old nurse worries over the youngest's cough, and Penelope's voice soothes everyone as night falls. You learn to savor the simple rituals, the way the light slants through the window, the taste of fresh pomegranate, the comfort of old songs sung softly in the dark. With winter's approach, preparations begin for the cold months you work with. The villagers to repair roofs, store grain, and ready the nets for stormy seas. Telemachus organizes the young men, leading with quiet confidence, earning respect not by force, but by fairness and care. You watch, proud, knowing the island is safe in hands as steady as your own. When storms roll over the island, thunder rattling the windows, you sit with Penelope by the fire, her hand in yours, warmth and peace all around you. You think of the storms you survived at sea, the terror, the loneliness, the longing for this very moment. The world outside may still be unpredictable, but inside you are unshakable. Love has become your anchor, your sail, your compass. Sometimes you rise before dawn, stepping outside into the mist. The olive trees glisten with dew, and the stars fade one by one. You breathe deep, feeling the earth solid beneath your feet, the promise of another day ready to unfold. You offer a quiet thanks not to distant gods, but to the land, to your family, to the ordinary miracles that fill your life. And when the sun rises, painting Ithaca gold, you are there to greet it. Content at last. Winter brings a hush to Ithaca, a gentle quiet unlike anything you knew on your long journey. Each morning you wake to the sound of rain on roof tiles and the steady crackle of logs in the hearth. You share warm bread and honey with Penelope, both of you savoring the luxury of an unhurried meal. Telemachus lingers at the table, grown, tall and thoughtful, eager to discuss the matters of the day. You marvel at how ordinary moments, once the things you dreamed of in exile, now fill your life with a quiet contentment. The palace is alive with a different sort of energy. The maids chatter as they spin wool by the fire. The dogs nap in sunny patches near the doors. Laughter echoes down the halls, and the smell of roasting roots and winter herbs drifts from the kitchen. In the evenings, the whole household gathers for simple meals, the glow of lamplight softening every voice and gesture. The world outside may be cold, but inside, you are wrapped in warmth and the sure knowledge that you belong. You keep busy with the season's tasks. You help mend fences battered by wind, guide the younger men in splitting wood, oversee the careful rationing of stores, so none go hungry before spring returns. Telemachus grows into his responsibilities, consulting you about disputes in the village and plans for new plantings. You teach him patience, reminding him that leadership is as much about listening as it is about commanding. Sometimes he surprises you with his wisdom, and you realize he has become more than your son. He is your legacy, the living proof that home can outlast every storm. Penelope, too, flourishes. She teaches the younger women how to weave tighter, stronger cloth. Her laughter warms the kitchen. Her advice steadies the hearts of those who worry. She reminds everyone, with a quiet glance or a soft word, that peace is worth the effort it takes to keep. In the evenings, when the house is calm and the flames burn low, she reads stories to the children and sits with you in the quiet, both of you wrapped in a comfort that words can't touch. As the days pass, you visit old friends around the island. You share wine in the shepherd's hut, trade jokes with the fishermen mending nets by the shore, sit with the elders as they recall the Ithaca of their youth. Each visit roots you deeper, makes you part of the living memory of this place. The bitterness of exile fades, replaced by a gratitude so deep you sometimes find yourself smiling for no reason at all. You spend time with Eumaeus, who is older now but still sharp as ever. Together you walk the paths you once trod as a boy, recalling the days when adventure was just a word and home was all you knew. You thank him for his loyalty, for his courage, for the way he kept hope alive in the darkest days. He shrugs it off, but you see pride in his eyes, and you know he feels the peace you do. When spring's promise begins to creep into the cold, you gather your family under the olive tree, the oldest symbol of your home. You share a meal, laughter rising like bird song, and you tell Telemachus that the future belongs to him now. You speak of the lessons you've learned, the importance of forgiveness, the necessity of courage, the grace of returning not just to a place, but to the heart of those who love you. That night, after everyone has gone to bed and the house is quiet, you sit with Penelope by the dying fire. She rests her head on your shoulder, and together you watch the embers glow and fade. You speak softly of dreams yet to come, of journeys you'll make together, not across oceans, but through the changing seasons of a life rebuilt. Sleep comes easily now, the dark no longer filled with fear, but with comfort and the gentle presence of those you love. Your final thoughts before drifting off are simple and true. You are home, at peace, and for once you are exactly where you are meant to be. And now, as the last candle flickers low and the house breathes in the hush of midnight, you let yourself fully exhale. All the doors are locked, the night is deep and gentle, and nothing outside these walls can trouble you. You listen to the quiet your own slow breath, the soft creak of old timbers settling, the distant sigh of wind slipping through the olive branches, the storms and monsters, the years of longing and hardship. All of it is behind you now, left far out on the empty sea. Here, in the heart of your own home, nothing is rushed and nothing is urgent. You stretch out, letting the weight of blankets and the softness of the bed hold you in a peace that feels endless. Your hands rest on cool linen, your body warmed by the nearness of the ones you love. Every sense is gently soothed, the scent of Penelope's hair, the faint sweetness of hearth smoke, the gentle cadence of someone breathing just beside you. Even the shadows in the corners are friendly here. wrapping the room in safety and memory. Outside, the world sleeps. Beyond the fields and starlit groves, the sea is calm and the sky unbroken. Your mind drifts, slow and untroubled, each thought a feather floating on a breeze. You remember what it means to be safe, to be loved, to belong. Every muscle loosens, every care is quieted. Tomorrow will come softly, and when it does, you'll wake rested and whole. The light of Ithaca pouring through the window. Let yourself go now, trusting in the walls around you, the earth beneath you, and the steady heartbeat of home. Let the night carry you far from worry, until only dreams remain soft and sweet as a summer wind.